All right. Notre Dame fans, welcome back to episode 2 of today's podcast at Irish Breakdown. Ryan, tonight, buddy, this is Ryan Roberts, our recruiting director at Irish Breakdown, and also in hot and heavy and some NFL draft stuff. I'm getting ready to talk. Hey, man, you got some recruiting scoop? And then I see he's like tweeting about NFL draft stuff. I sent you my Broncos mock draft, so I had Leo Chenell on there, obviously. So dig your comments on that. But tonight, though, Ryan, NFL draft is aside. Notre Dame spring ball's to the side. Recruiting in general is to the side. Tonight, it's about quarterback play. And we're going to break down the board. We're going to look at the board. We're going to dive into the film. But we're also want to talk about why this is such a big year of quarterback. So this is going to be a quarterback show. We're going to focus primarily on 4 guys. Dante Moore of Detroit, Michigan. We're going to talk about Christopher Vizzina of Alabama. We're going to talk about Jackson Arnold from Texas. And we are going to talk about Avery Johnson from Kansas. You don't see a lot of big-time quarterbacks coming from Kansas. No, that kid's a player. And he's a really good football player we're going to get to. Ryan, I just want to kick things off. And, you know, one of the things is Notre Dame is in a situation where they have to get a really good quarterback in this class. And we're not going to get into the Dante versus Vizzina versus Nico versus whoever else debate. This is more of a big picture comment. They have to get a big-time quarterback in this class. The benefit for Notre Dame is this is an incredibly deep class of quarterbacks. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in this class, Ryan. After a year in which you look at the quarterback class, and after the first 4 or 5 guys, I'm like, you know, some nice players, but a lot of projects, a lot of low floor, high ceiling guys. This class, Ryan, has a chance to be, in my opinion, as really the best quarterback class since the 2018 class that gave us Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and you know, Phil Dracovic, and just a great class. This class has a chance to be the best quarterback class since then, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly talented. I mean, right at the top, obviously, we'll be talking a lot about Dante Moore, but you still, you know, have guys like Malachi Nelson, and you mentioned Nico, and obviously we're going to be talking about Christopher Vizzina, who's a consensus top 100 player. We're talking about Jackson Arnold, who's a consensus top 100 player. And I think it's really important, obviously, for this cycle, Brian, you know, kind of what you illustrated is, you know, 2 cycles ago now, Notre Dame pulls in Tyler Buchner, who everybody's really excited about, obviously going into his sophomore year, expected to be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. Last year, you took a good player, in my opinion, out of New Jersey, and Steve Angeli, but he's not obviously an elite level quarterback. Right. So you need, if you're going to go 2 classes in a row now with a potentially not elite quarterback, that's where you kind of hit these lulls, in my opinion, right? Like every other year, you really need to hit that position to set it up for the next step. Because then you're thinking, if you do land an elite level quarterback, Tyler Buchner, when he's a junior, the next quarterback will be a freshman, which means that year, maybe like a redshirt type of year, right? So then they might move out, and that's just the cycle that you kind of want to be a part of. And luckily, Notre Dame, like you said, is in good position for a couple of these kids, and a couple of them are very highly ranked quarterbacks. And this is the worst case scenario. If you miss on 1 or 2 of these guys, let's say, and we're going to talk a lot about Dante, obviously, there are still options. You have options in this class because this is, like you said, this is a loaded quarterback class from top to bottom. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of high-level talent. This is the year, if you're a college team that needs an elite quarterback, this is probably the cycle for you. You're on mute.
The 4th guy on the board that we're going to talk about tonight, Avery Johnson, is a guy that's probably going to get passed over by a lot of the big schools, and he's going to probably go somewhere like I'm just throwing random schools out, like a Nebraska, a Kansas State, it's not going to be Oklahoma. It's not going to be, as of right now, it doesn't look like it's going to be Notre Dame. It's not going to be USC. And he's the kind of kid, he's in like that 100 to 250 ranking, and that dude's going to be a player. Sure. Right. And there's going to be some kids that are sort of the low floor, high ceiling guys in the 1 to 200s in this class are going to get overlooked because of Dante Moore and Malachi Nelson and Arch Manning and Chris Vizzina's. There's going to be some kids that get overlooked that are going to turn out to be really, really good football players. And that's what I like about this class. Whereas last year there was, in my opinion, way too many low floor, high ceiling guys. Even a guy like Drew Aller, who was the guy that I wanted Notre Dame to go after last year. Once it was obvious they didn't want Cade Klubnik, who was my number one quarterback overall for college. Again, for college, there's a difference between projecting a guy to the NFL and projecting a guy to college.
Sure.
But once it was clear they didn't want him, I mean, Drew Aller and Gavin Wimsett, who I liked, but he was a little bit raw, and then Sam Horn, those were kind of my guys. Neither one of those three, none of those three, I should say, grade out as high as the top two kids on the board in this class for me. And that's the thing for Notre Dame is I understood why they went with Steve Angeli last year. You're higher on him than I am. He's a nice, solid player. He's a good program kid. He could be a Jack Cohn down the road. There's no reason he can't be a Jack Cohn caliber player, which Jack Cohn just led you to an 11-1 record in the Fiesta Bowl, right? I mean, everybody knows I like Jack Cohn. But we're talking about Notre Dame needing to win compete for a national championship. And there's kids on the board, especially at the top of this board, that give Notre Dame that chance. And at some point in time, they've got to land one of those guys. Yeah. I think the 2019 or the 2020 class was also a pretty good quarterback class. They got one of the best in that class, in my opinion, in Tyler Buchner, the 2021 class, excuse me. And so this is not a OG. Tyler Buchner's not the guy. They got to get somebody to. To me, it's the year in which. Here's why it's so important, Ryan. You have to start to build a quarterback legacy, right? I wrote an article a couple weeks ago, and look, the quarterback legacy of Brian Kelly is not going to be good. It's going to be your best quarterback in 12 years is Ian Book. That's not good. Sure. That's not a good sign. That's not a knock on Ian Book. It's just when you're a program like Notre Dame and you signed Gunnar Keel and Everett Golson and Deshaun Kaiser and Malik Zaire and Brandon Wimbush and Phil Jerkovic and, your legacy can't be Ian Book was the best of all those guys, right?
Yeah.
At some point in time, you've got to change it. And we're entering that period right now, this next, 8 to 10 months where a past quarterback, a present quarterback, and whoever the future quarterback is going to be is really going to define if we continue with what we've seen or if they can finally get things going. And the past is obviously Tom Reese, who was actually one of the more productive quarterbacks of the Brian Kelly era. Behind, I think Ian Book ended up passing him in yards, right, at the end, but before that, he was by far the most productive for career numbers of the quarterbacks under Brian Kelly. Now he's the OC and quarterback coach, the present being Tyler Buchner. You could throw Drew Pine into that conversation as well. And then the future being whoever they get in this class. It's imperative that those three things come together, and that's what makes quarterback recruiting so important in this class. Now, we're going to dive into the film of the number one guy on the board. We're going to talk about him, and then after we're done talking about him, we're going to talk a little bit about, what I think is kind of why our view of what to do with him in this class is a little different than past years. But obviously the number one guy on my board, Ryan, I believe the number one guy on your board as well, is Dante Moore. From Detroit, Michigan. He goes to Martin Luther King Jr. High School in Detroit. Extremely talented player. You can see from the rankings, look, we like to give this for context. Y'all know that I don't necessarily always buy into the rankings. They all have him as a top 20 player nationally. I think that's fair. I think I tend to be more closer to rivals than I do on 3. But when you're talking about the difference between 6 and 18, Ryan, you're not talking about a big gap. I mean, they all view him as an elite player. There's no question about it.
Yeah. Now, at the end of the day, whether he's 6, 18, 1, 20, he's going to end up being in that 5-star status, right? And that's the program changer. That's all that we matter at the end of the day is not what the ranking says, but this is why we do these film sessions. It's about what our eyes see, because this is, in my opinion, and we'll get into why specifically, this is a program changer. This is a momentum flipper if you're not headed in the right direction. This is the type of young man that is a seamless fit, both from a playing perspective and from the, obviously the personal side of everything. So that I like that we don't have a huge range of outcomes here, and we probably shouldn't, right? With the 4 different recruiting platforms. And I think it tells the story of just how special most people think this young man is, because the recruiting rankings are somewhat bunched together into a cohesive understanding.
So let's talk about why, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the big thing, right? So obviously Dante this past year led his team to a state championship,
Mm-hmm.
passed for just over 3,000 yards, 40
Yep.
touchdowns, and 3 picks. So I mean, that's some pretty impressive statistics, and we're going to dive into kind of what we see from Dante here. You guys don't need to see us, so we're just going to dive in and let you look at Dante. You don't need to see what Ryan and I look like. So let's first get into him. And I think Ryan, we'll let a couple of these clips just kind of roll as we get into him. I think if I was talking with a friend of mine earlier today, if there's one thing I'd say, okay, if I was building a perfect quarterback in the lab, Dante has a lot of the traits that I want. The one that he doesn't have is he's not a huge guy. He's not
No.
6'6", he's not 220. He's a 6'1" and change, maybe 6'2", a little on the thin side. But what you see from this film is he is a natural passer and natural thrower of the quarterback. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the one. His presence in the pocket is really, really impressive. Do not even start this whole freezing up thing on me again. I'm going to lose my mind if this thing starts acting like that again.
Well, we'll get it remedied, and I will say if anybody has ever seen, there was a throw that was kind of circulating on Twitter a few weeks ago. I think he was maybe in Miami doing a camp or something like that. I forget what the workout was, but you could just see from the coach's side of everything, because it's not obviously coach's film, but they have kind of the back view where you just see the arm angle and you see the ball just come off his hand. One thing that I love about Dante Moore is when you talk about release, this kid is just such a natural thrower. There's no wasted movement. There's some nice compact delivery. You don't have to wind up and just have an elongated motion. The ball just comes out of his hand so effortlessly, which, I mean, when you're talking about the RPO game or just general, having to get the ball out of your hand quickly, this young man gets the ball out and it gets out in a very compact, easy delivery. He's an easy thrower of the football.
Yeah, so just kind of dive into his film. I'm wondering if this is a Chrome issue. I'm going to try to see if I can pull this up on Safari, see if it works a little bit better. But I think the one thing about Dante that personally I like, and I've talked about this before, Ryan, I like athletic quarterbacks, but and a lot of this comes down to just personal preference, right? I mean, it's just what you prefer as a coach. It's what you prefer as an evaluator, analyst. Every scheme is different. But the thing for me that I like is I like an athletic quarterback who wants to throw the football. I mean, that's the big thing for me. And when I look at Dante, I see a kid that understands how to use his mobility to impact the game as a thrower, and that's the thing that I'm looking for is use your athleticism to be a mobile quarterback, to be a guy that, goes out there and impacts the game and, from the pocket. That's what I prefer. So I do think it's a Chrome problem. So I think I've got this remedy. Just give me a second to get this going, everybody.
Yeah.
So I have to.
Brian, that's also my preference when I'm talking about quarterbacks too, because I'll say it's really cool to kind of watch Dante, and I know we're going to get it up in a second, but when you see him break the pocket or kind of extend as a runner, it kind of takes you off guard for a second because you're like, oh, the kid can scoot a little bit, man. It's just he's a extender to throw. He's not a runner. You know what I mean? He's not a guy that wants to run. He extends so that he can throw the football, which I find it very refreshing, to say the least.
Yeah, so apparently it's not letting me share a Safari screen. So this is really ticking me off. StreamYard's about to get some serious – they're about to get some serious heat from me, Ryan, with this. They're about to get some serious heat from me. They're not going to be very fond of me here moving forward with these issues that keep happening with the film. So this is not a Irish breakdown problem. This is a flipping – StreamYard problem that they were supposed to have fixed. So it'll work on Chrome, but for some crazy reason, Safari won't let me pull up a Safari thing. So I am going to continue to try to rectify this because this is going to really tick me off if this doesn't work. So we'll have to see if we can get this thing going. Just give me one more second. And there it goes. Paused up again. So yeah. This is going to tick me off. So we're gonna talk about Dante Moore here, and I have a way that we're going to get this fixed, Ryan. So we're going to get this thing going, and I'm gonna MacGyver the heck out of this thing. So what we'll do first is, and again, I apologize, everybody. This was working beforehand, but for whatever reason, once we turn it into, so once we hit record and start playing it, it just decides it doesn't want to go anymore. So we're gonna figure this out. But I have some methods to the madness here of how we're gonna make this thing work. So I think maybe in the meantime, while we're going on this, the conversation we need to have is, look, why this year is it different? Why is it different this year when it comes to Dante or bust?
Yeah.
And we talked about this a lot. It's one of those years, Ryan, where just about every other year, and again, I think some of this whole, is it Dante? Is it Chris Vizzina? A lot of this stuff I think is a little bit overplayed, because I don't think it's a situation where Chris Vizzina right now is a lean to Notre Dame like some people are saying. I think it's, I think it's a situation where I still think Dante's the guy they have the best shot at, but there is that conversation, and we've said, like, look, Chris Vizzina is a good player. We talked about that today, but there's a reason, in my opinion, that they're in a it's got to be Dante or bust type of situation. Let's talk about why that is.
Yeah, let's do it. So I would say just kind of dissecting Dante for a second, right? 5-star quarterback, special talents. That is easy quantifiable as soon as we get the film up, right? We'll be able to see why he is that player. Like you kind of mentioned already, state champion quarterback, stats are awesome, has the profile, consensus top 20 player across the board. The big layer, obviously, is that he is already a North kid, right? Like he is 2.5 hours away from the Notre Dame campus, which tells me he's not afraid to come into the Colts, right? Like he's been here. He understands that whole portion. And then the biggest part of it is great student, academically driven. This isn't just a football player that's also going to go to class. This is a true student athlete that cares about his education. And when you kind of put all those things together, that tells me that's a Notre Dame fit. And of course, everybody's going to be out and trying to get him. I see people in the chat saying, Miami, Michigan State, Ohio State, I saw in there, Michigan. Like, of course, every program is going to kick the tires with a kid like a Dante Moore. But I think when you kind of just draw up and you make a little pecking order of what it takes to play quarterback at Notre Dame and what are the desired things that would make Notre Dame a good fit, he checks all these boxes. And we talked about why it's important this cycle, because you just got a good, solid quarterback in last cycle in Steve Angeli. You didn't get an elite one. You didn't get a star potentially. You can't go 2 years if you want to take this thing and to push it to the next level. You can't go 2 years without signing a difference maker at the quarterback position. When you put all those things together, I think that makes a complete, I think that kind of makes a complete case for why this is the now. And when we kind of compare it against guys like Christopher Vizzina, who we're going to talk about, who we both like, by the way, Jackson Arnold, who we both like, by the way, Avery Johnson, who is kind of just a throw-in in the conversation, but he's a top 200 player by most recruiting platforms too. So he's a good football player as well. But when you just kind of look at what is the difference between Dante Moore and the next guy, Vizzina, let's say, Dante Moore and Jackson Arnold, there is just, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, there's a gap. There's a clear gap. I just believe there is. And when you put all those things together, I think that's why this is the now. This is why you wait this thing out. And I know some people, and I get it. Well, what if we hurt ourselves with the Vizzina thing? I get it. I understand it. But at the end of the day, if you want things to be different, you got to do something different. That's the point blank period to it.
At some point in time, you got to be willing to put it all on the table. At some point in time, you have to be willing to do that. And look, people that say, well, look, Notre Dame's never going to have the top to bottom talent that Bama has. They're never going to have the top to bottom talent that so-and-so has. Well, you've got to find places that you can neutralize that. And to me, places that Notre Dame can neutralize that is quarterback, offensive line, tight end, defensive line, and when you can, and linebacker should also be one. So when you have positions where you can match them, you have to match it. But when there are premium positions like that, then you have to get there. Look, if you want to have a chance to go beat Alabama, if you want to have a chance to go out and beat Ohio State, and I'm not talking about just like that one glorious Saturday where you just all the breaks went your way. I'm talking about where you can go toe to toe on a somewhat consistent basis and beat them more often than not, or at least beat them enough to where you feel like you've got a shot to go in there, which then leads to getting more players down the road. Quarterback is the position where that happens, and I'm not someone who believes offer lists mean everything in the world, but Chris Vizzina is from Alabama and he doesn't have an offer from Alabama. To me, Dante Moore is a game changer, as you mentioned, but he's the kind of guy, in my opinion, that you say you at some point in time you have to be willing to say, hey, we'll wait. Because here's the other thing too, Ryan. Who's to say that Notre Dame can't flip somebody if they miss out on Dante and Vizzina? I mean, why is Notre Dame the only big-time school in the country that, well, if a kid commits somewhere else, you're done. You're not going to get that guy. Look, if Notre Dame misses on Vizzina and Dante Moore, those guys are both going to decide. You had said today earlier that the head coach for Vizzina said sometime in the spring, before the school year is over, right? It's probably like April, May. I would imagine Dante Moore is going to be a spring decision, spring ending in June at latest, into July. There's plenty of time if you miss on both of those guys to go out there and say, hey, look, we're going to have to go in a different direction, right? I mean, there's going to be guys left on the board uncommitted. There's going to be guys you can go flip. And you have to be willing to take that chance and have enough confidence in yourself as a program to say, hey, we're going to go out there and take those chances. We're going to go out there and try to get those guys. And the teams that aren't willing to do that are the teams that are going to never catch Alabama and never catch Georgia and never catch Ohio State and Clemson with any consistency. And this is one of those positions where you say, Ryan, it's not every day that a 5-star kid from Detroit is a 4.0 student.
Right.
Let me rephrase. There's not every day that a 5-star quarterback comes out of Detroit. It's even less, a normal thing that a 5-star quarterback from Detroit is going to be a 4.0 student, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's just so many things. Say if you're not willing to go all in for this kid, then when are you going to be able to go all in? And the notion of, well, a bird in the hand is better than this, that, and the other thing. I don't agree with that. I'm sorry. Like at some point in time, you've got to be willing to say, unless you're going to have Alabama's talent level everywhere, give me Trevor Lawrence over Mac Jones. Right. Give me Justin Fields over Mac Jones. You know what I mean? You just give me – I mean, we see it all the time. Give me that guy over Mac Jones unless I can tell you that I'm going to be able to have the talent around that quarterback that Mac Jones had around him. And odds of that being the case are not overly great, in my opinion.
Right.
So they have to be willing to take advantage of the year when they can go get this guy. And hopefully here soon we're going to be able to pull some film up. But if you're not willing to take those chances, then you're just, that's the, I'll say this. Okay. That's the Brian Kelly way of thinking. This kid's still a good player. He may not be the best guy, but he's good enough. I mean, and I love the fact that Tommy Rees is going after these guys because, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Notre Dame wouldn't. I mean, they didn't really go after Caleb Williams. Barely went after him. I mean, part of that was, they like Tyler Buchner and all that, but like they were just unwilling to go toe to toe for the best quarterbacks in the country unless they were strong Notre Dame leans like a Phil Dracovic. I mean, you'd have to screw that one up not to get Phil Dracovic. And this is one where you got to go out and battle. And I think Tommy Rees has done a phenomenal job putting Notre Dame in position to where he can say that they're legitimately in it. And now that Marcus Freeman's getting involved in the recruitment more and more and more, I think those are the things that make you feel like, okay, they've got a chance to do something here. And that's exciting.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And I think that there needs to be a little bit of a change of mentality, in my opinion, from like a fan perspective, right? Because I am a fan at heart. Absolutely. And I'm a fan that has never seen a national championship. And I've seen people in here like, oh, we need to stop talking about, getting a 5-star quarterback. We need to get the quarterback that we can, and all this type of stuff. And I don't understand how anything changes at that point. Right. Like, what is going to be different that is going to get Notre Dame back to what it once was, right? Like the golden age of Notre Dame. Like, how are they going to get back if you keep doing the same thing over and over again? That's not how anything changes. In order to make a change, you have to go outside your comfort zone a little bit. Right. And Notre Dame is outside of its comfort zone. And that's what I really have loved about following Coach Freeman so far, is that even when he was the defensive coordinator after he got hired, the mindset on the recruiting trail is different. There's chances that are going to be taken. There's emphases that were not emphasized enough about finding the caliber of athlete that can also fit at Notre Dame. It's not Notre Dame fit. It's can they fit at Notre Dame? And that's the difference for me.
So we got it done, Ryan. So this is what we're doing.
Oh, that looks smooth. That looks smooth now. We're good.
I told you I was going to MacGyver the heck out of this thing. So I just got to share what I did. So since this wasn't working on Chrome, so normally what we do is we share the screen, right? So we pull it up on a web page and we share the screen. Well, this dumb thing, for whatever reason, was not working on the screen share. So what I did while we were having that conversation, and I think it was a good conversation, and it was a conversation I enjoyed, I went ahead and did a screen record for Dante Moore's film. And so now we are going to watch this on a video, and we're gonna dive into his film a little bit. So I just have to get the film on Vizzina going here while record that while we're talking about Dante, and then we'll be all set. So, but at the end of the day, like I said, you have to be. Marcus Freeman has embraced much of what made Notre Dame, and part of that is the notion that we're Notre Dame. We go anywhere and we're going to battle for every kid in the country. We're not going to be afraid of Alabama. We're not going to be afraid of Ohio State. We're not going to be afraid of Clemson. We're not going to be afraid of anybody. And if you can't have that mindset, then this isn't the place for you. And that's the big thing for me, is this notion of, well, just take what you can get. That's the mentality that Brian Kelly instilled in 12 years. Is it's good enough, right? It's good enough. Just enjoy what you have and don't get too greedy. And that's not me. I can't be that guy. I can't be that just it's good enough, and because that's not how you win. And the goal at Notre Dame shouldn't be, well, you know what? You guys really tried hard, and that's all you can ask for. To a degree, that's all you can ask for, but then it's your job as a coach to say, well, we're going to go out there and try to make it even better. So let's get this going, Ryan. I want to watch some film. So let's get some Dante Moore. You can see the numbers right there. That's pretty ridiculous. I think it's about a 70% completion rate, correct?
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. So a couple things to stand out. Number one is you're going to see from the film, he's a very effortless thrower. He has a very clean, smooth motion. The other thing I like, Ryan, is the ball. I think, we talked the other day about how sometimes guys can run in a way where it makes their arm, their speed look not as good as it actually is. And I think Dante Moore is like that as a thrower. I've had people say, well, he doesn't have a great arm. And I said, it's just because, like, look, there's no effort here. Look how quickly – this is what I want y'all to look at. It's not that the ball goes – what is this about 40 yards? He throws it from about the 43. It gets caught around the 15. That's a 40, a little over 40 yards. I want you to look at a couple things. Number one, look how effortless that motion is right there. It's just easy. He just snaps it off. He's not even trying. He just flicks it. Look how quickly. It's not how far it goes. It's how quickly it gets up and then down. Yeah. It gets up in the air and gets down in a hurry. And that's what you want to see. Because I know quarterbacks can make that same exact throw with that same exact trajectory where the ball floats. And that's not what you want. I mean, even this throw right here, it's like it looks like it's going to float, and it just gets there so quickly. It just gets up and gets down so quickly. And that is something, Ryan, to me, that I find incredibly, incredibly impressive.
Yeah, no, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, right? Like the release quickness is is probably the most impressive thing for me, right? Like you could just see the ball gets out of his hand in a hurry. And like you said, like some of these throws that are going 40+ yards, it kind of takes you off guard because he's not taking like this massive crow hop and really stepping into it. It's just getting out of his hands so quickly.
Right. And it's effortless. I mean, this is another example. This ball gets caught around the 15. This is another, and he throws it from about the 41. That's a 44-yard throw from the middle of the field to on a deep drag, and he does it effortlessly, and he starts to go away from the throw because he knows he's about to get hit, right? I mean, this is an effortless, easy throw, and look how quickly it gets up and gets down. There is no touch on that ball from the standpoint of like, touch isn't the right word. There's no air on this really. Right. It's getting up and it's getting down. And so I think one thing that often gets missed is this notion that he doesn't have a great arm. I'm going to strongly disagree with that. Look, again, this is another one. Look how he throws this from about the 35-yard line. It gets caught at the 5. That's a 30-yard throw that he just snaps off with ease. And it just gets up and it gets down in a hurry with great ball placement. That's the other thing you're going to see, Ryan, is if you're going to talk to somebody, if somebody's talking to you about accuracy and the only thing that they can say about accuracy is completion percentage, they don't really understand what elite accuracy means, right? It's accuracy is about being able to put the ball where you want it, back shoulder, high, low and away, on a hip, all those type of things. That's what we're looking for. This is an example, Ryan, of what I was talking about earlier. I want a guy this is an athletic move. He could easily take off and outrun this guy to the sideline easily right there. He could take off and beat this guy to the sideline. I'm going to pause it here real quick. Right now, Dante can outrun that defensive lineman.
Oh, easy.
And he's got all this green in front of him, right? I mean, there's all this green to his left. And he takes off, but he's always got his eyes downfield, Ryan. I mean, he's never takes his eyes as he's moving around the pocket right here. He never takes his eyes off what's going on down the field.
Yeah, and honestly, his body is even squared up on this throw. This is not an easy throw at all. Rolling to your left like that, that's not easy.
This is a 35-yard throw that's on a line rolling to his left, Ryan. Like, don't talk to me about he doesn't have a strong arm when you see that throw right there.
Yeah, no, that's an absurd throw. I think one thing that some people kind of miss on it too is that there are some times where he's not throwing this, this rocket into a tight window because he has such good anticipation to him. He doesn't have to throw it into a window.
Explain what that means to people.
So that means
I try to use a lot, and I want to make sure people understand it.
So you'll see some guys that are effortless and they get everything out on time. And sometimes it'll just kind of look like it's effortless and that they didn't put a lot of heat on it because the window's big. The defense has not reacted to it to a degree where now it's a tight window throw, quote unquote. And that's where you see, and it's awesome to have the Josh Allens of the world that can throw that needle, but they're maybe a second late to seeing it. He sees it so early that he doesn't have to throw it as hard as he possibly can because he has the window and he takes advantage of it because he anticipated it.
The other thing too about anticipation is it's knowing what's going to happen before it happens. And what I mean by that is not being a mind reader, but I know where the defender's going and I know my receiver's going and I know when he's supposed to get there. And I'm going to throw it open, right? So that drag route, he may not be open on that drag route, but I'm going to throw it over where it needs to get to. He's going to run under it because that's where he needs to be. Mac Jones was a master at this. This is why Mac Jones is starting in the NFL. It's not because he's got a cannon for an arm, he's athletic. His anticipation and mindset is exceptional. And I think that's the thing that we often miss about Dante is he's a very high IQ football player. Very high IQ football player. Here's another thing that is often underappreciated. He is more than willing to take a hit. Like he knows he's going to get hit, and he's got a guy up the seam. The timing of it. I mean, this is dropping it over top of three guys with a dude right in your face. This is a special throw. And you can watch this. Watch the corner to the top of the field. He has no time to react to this ball. It gets to that receiver so quickly that he has no time to react to the football. None.
Yep.
I mean, that is special arm talent, Ryan.
Absolutely.
He throws a ton of these back shoulders too, by the way. He is an excellent back shoulder passer.
And back shoulders is an advanced thing, right? Because you have to have not only confidence in your ball placement, but you also have to have confidence in the receivers that you're throwing that they're going to be able to react to that. So that's a pretty like advanced concepts. You don't see a lot of high schoolers throwing a bunch of back shoulder balls because that's kind of like I have like man coverage. I know the back is turned of the defender, and now I'm going to hit the back shoulder. Like it's a pretty nuanced and advanced way of thinking as a quarterback, to be honest.
This throw I really like right here, Ryan, because he actually, if you watch it, his feet actually aren't where they should be. He actually steps a little bit too far to his right, and he's got a post route breaking across. But his arm is so strong, he's still able to throw this thing on a line on this post route. The other thing, this is what I talk about with ball placement. Was watching this throw with somebody. He's like, and he says, see, he underthrew the guy a little bit. And I said, well, why do you say that? He goes, well, he didn't lead him. So he threw the ball exactly where he needed to throw that ball. And here's what I'm saying. This cornerback's playing over the top, right? So that corner's playing high. You throw that ball out over top, this corner has a chance to make a play on it. Once you see that corner's on top, you put it right on him. And that, to me, is where that ball needs to go. That's absolutely where that ball needs to go. This is another one that you just watch the timing. He knows where he's trying to go, and he just gets that ball out in a hurry, and it just travels so quickly. So quickly. You can't.
And he's so easy. He's really good rolling to his left too, which is a pretty unnatural thing for a righty to begin with. I like on that last one that we saw where, the one that we saw before, he didn't really get his feet set because it was kind of out of necessity. That one, he squared up his shoulders and made the throw a lot easier for him too.
I love this. This is another great throw. This is right up the seam, nice and easy, effortless. Sets his feet, gets the ball out. I mean, this is a really impressive throw. And again, it's throwing the guy open. I mean, this is the thing. It's like this. Look, this is this. So if you see over here, I don't think I can show it because you can't really see it. But there's a receiver on the far hash to his left. Okay, and he's actually on the opposite hash. He's just getting inside the opposite hash, and Dante's already thrown a ball to the hash. So the guy that caught the ball. Right now, watch where he was when Dante let it loose. Watch where again, it's just, this is the kind of anticipation that I just absolutely love. He plants his feet. He's thrown now. Look where that kid is. There's somebody else on the seam right now. And he, a lot of guys, see, here's the thing. A lot of quarterbacks will see that defender that's currently on the seam and see the guy that's playing over top and not feel comfortable about making that throw. And Dante has no problem with that. He has no problem with that. And that's what I absolutely love about watching this kid play. He's a really special quarterback. Throws on the run relatively well. I mean, this is a quick read. He sees it coming, knows where to go. Soon as he sees this linebacker, this safety coming downhill, he knows he's got the drag coming wide open. Gets rid of it quickly, hits the guy right in the stomach. He doesn't have to reach for it. He just catches it and goes. That is a big-time play. Love the timing here. Again, the timing, the anticipation, just it's he doesn't set his feet real great on this throw, Ryan. It's kind of like the other one. He actually kind of fights across his body a little bit because his plant foot, or is not his plant, his lead foot is actually a little bit to the right of where he wants to go, but he still drops it on a dime. I mean, so like if I'm doing a clinic talk right now, I'm saying, hey, if you can see it here. So when a quarterback fights across his body, you can see, because he has to you see that bend here where he's kind of leaned over as opposed to kind of turning his hips. That's what usually happens when a guy is fighting against his body because he didn't step correctly. But it doesn't matter because his arm talent is so special that he's just able to put the ball where he wants it. And that's what separates the good ones, the really good ones, from the great ones. The great ones don't always have to have it perfect to get the ball where it needs to get to. Aaron Rodgers is that way during the regular season. I had to say that. Sorry. The great ones are that guy where your feet don't always have to be set. You don't always have to have perfect time. He underthrows this one a little bit in the rain. I'd like to see him get this ball out a little bit more. He kind of aims it, right? This is what happens when you aim it and don't snap it off, right? See how it floats up a little bit. Again, it looks like it's raining pretty hard there too. So I want to see him obviously snap that one off a little bit, but still gets it where it needs to get to and makes the play he needs to make. But this is a really, really special talent. RPO game. Again, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I think one thing that you kind of come back to with watching the film is the phrase arm talent. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that people kind of associate that just with arm strength. But I think what you
Mm-hmm.
see here is that he throws with so many different trajectories and so many
Mm-hmm.
different angles. It's almost like a pitcher in baseball. Like he doesn't just have a fastball; he has a curveball, he has a slider. He
Right.
can bring out. He has an arsenal in his throwing repertoire, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
just what makes him special.
I love this throw here. This is he knows he's got to heat this one up a little bit, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like right before between four guys, right? So look where everything is when he starts to throw. When he starts to throw, this guy's not open, right? I mean, he is cocking the throw. He's throwing to the receiver that's currently at the 30-yard line on the hash. That's who he's throwing to. There's two guys inside of him,
Yep.
right? But he
Mm-hmm.
knows where that guy's going to get to, and he throws the guy open in between six guys. There's six guys in that area, and he gets the ball there, right? I mean, this is a junior in high school, Ryan.
Yep.
Like, look, are there guys in the country with stronger arms? Yeah, there are. Are there bigger quarterbacks? Yeah. Are there guys with maybe higher ceilings? Yeah, sure. This is one of the throws where I look at and say, this is a good throw, but this is a throw that he's got to kind of muscle up a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd like, with more strength conditioning, more time in the weight room, maybe he gets a little bit more zip on this, but he's not going to throw his ball as effortlessly as Trevor Lawrence does. But
Sure.
there's so many other things that he does just at a truly, truly elite level that you just say, this kid is special. This kid has something different about him. Again, like you said, throws really well moving to his left.
Really does.
That's
the best throw on the film. That's the best throw in the film right there.
The most confident throw you'll ever see a kid make, Ryan.
Yep.
This is absurd.
Back shoulder about, what's that, about 45, 50 yards in the air?
It's a little 45. He throws it from about midfield, about the 49. Yep. The guy catches it inside the 10.
Yeah.
Right? And it just relatively on the line about the 7. I mean, it's an over a 40-yard throw that he just puts that sucker right on. This is the kind of throw that Matt Stafford was making in the Super Bowl. I mean, yeah. Matt Stafford put on a back shoulder clinic in the game against the Super Bowl game against the Bengals.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody can watch
further away. This is how you want it to be, man.
I know.
So you can see everything.
So you can see the full film. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, I just that throw though. I mean, honestly, if anybody watches that and thinks that there's any arm strength concerns, because again, man, that's 40 plus yards on the back shoulder. Like nobody does that. People don't do that. That's absurd.
Right. It's a great throw, and it requires about as much confidence as you can have. This is another one. He starts to throw this, and the receivers kind of getting to the top of his drop. It's actually not a good route. But he gets the ball out so quickly, it doesn't matter. Another back shoulder. This is an example of, you talk about that, just the arm trajectories you talk about. He's just playing street ball right here. I mean, I love quarterbacks that do that. He's just snapping it off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an impressive thing. Again, another. I mean, this is just a stupid back shoulder throw. I mean, this is just ridiculous. This is just. I don't know how to evaluate this. Like, how do I even evaluate this? Like, what are you doing here? This is just, he just sidearms it and just flicks it off to the sideline. He's about to get hit, and it's just perfect ball placement. It's just like, come on. That's either caught inside the 5 for a first down, or it's going incomplete. And the DB has no clue what's happening. The DB has no concept that the ball's coming. None, because the ball gets out so quickly.
Yeah,
and it's just, and his receivers, I'll give his receivers at King do a great job of being ready for the ball. Mm-hmm. They do a great job of being ready for it, because I mean, he gets to be 70% the way that he throws. You better get your head around quick. You better, it's like the old expression, you get your head on a swivel. If you're a receiver at Derrick King, your head has got to be on a swivel, because you don't know when or where Dante's going to put that thing. You may think, oh, I'm covered, and Dante's like, no, buddy, I got this.
I would personally never, if I'm a defense running against Dante Moore, well, maybe not never, but I would rarely run man coverage, because if you're putting your back to this kid, he's hitting that back shoulder all day. He's breaking the pocket as a runner. You don't have anybody to account for him. It's a headache.
Yeah. Just let this run through a little bit. But this is I think some of you are saying why I think this kid is special. I mean, he's got the total package.
Yep.
Patience, getting the ball out quickly, and when he misses, it's like completions for someone. Like that was kind of my issue with Drew Aller last year, who I like a lot, by the way. I'm a big Drew Aller fan. I think he's got about a high of a ceiling as any quarterback in the 2022 class. I mean, big arm and 6'5" and good athlete and all that kind of stuff. But with Drew Aller, he doesn't know where the ball's going to go a lot of times. It's like there's a lot you got to teach into him. With Dante, it's just about teach him your system and get him. I mean, the person, honestly, the person who I'm most concerned with about Dante Moore's development in college, should he pick Notre Dame, is Matt Balis. Like I don't think anybody can screw this one up from, when it comes to Dante. There's some things you want to refine and you got to teach him the system. But like, to me, it's going to be as much about the strength program as it is anything else.
Physical development. Yeah.
Oh gosh. I mean, his dad and his coaches at King have done a great job of, and I'm assuming he's got a quarterback coach like everybody else. This is a check down, by the way. He's looking long. He wants it, but it's just not there yet. So he just comes down and throws the short route and gets the ball to the guy so quickly, can make people miss and goes and gets the first down. This is the RPO game.
Mm-hmm.
He does this really, really well because he doesn't have to set his feet and throw. He's really accurate without having to set his feet. He barely sets his feet here. He barely grips the ball, and you can see he barely has the ball gripped, and he just pulls it and throws an accurate throw and completion, and you just stole 20 yards. Right.
That's why quick release and being able to diagnose quickly is so important in the RPO game. What do you think about run pass option?
Yep. This is another example of putting the ball where it needs to be. When he releases the ball, let me show you this. When he's about to release the ball, that corner is in front of and angling to beat him to the spot, the receiver to the spot. If Dante leads this throw, a good corner is breaking that pass up. So what he does is he puts it right on his belly to the back hip, and the guy can't break it up. It's only his guy can catch it. Now, that's just again, the understanding of ball placement there is really impressive from Dante Moore. We'll just do a couple more clips here, and then we'll get to. We have a few questions about Dante. Good read, good progression. That's another thing you see him when you watch. You don't see it a ton in the highlights. But when you watch game film, and there's actually some decent game film online of his sophomore and junior season, you see him going through reads. You see him going through progressions, and you get a sense of this is another off-platform throw. This is the kind of stuff that has me thinking excited about Tyler Buckner, because this is the kind of throw I think Tyler Buckner also makes really well. And or at least he did in high school. This like just rush. Okay, I got my guy. Let me get it out quickly, kind of throw off platform. I think Tyler's going to be able to make throws like this too, but Dante also is able to make this. Really, really impressive. Really impressive. And, something else we don't see on this highlight, Ryan, there's like no running in this highlight.
I know.
He didn't put any of his running clips on there, but I love the pocket mobility. But this is I like. So you see how the defender's coming around. Watch him he works his shoulder inside. He's protecting the football from the rusher. Watch that right there. Protecting the football from the rusher. He's got two hands on the ball. Then he escapes. So his first task right there, protect the football. Don't get sacked, but protect the football. He does that. Then he finds the receiver, gets the ball out. This kid is really special, right? This is a special quarterback.
Yeah, and I love the pocket, the feel in the pocket for one, but also he is very tough inside the pocket. I've seen several already where he's getting hit while he throws. He has to kind of navigate some chaos in that pocket, and here we go on the run again.
Look at this, but look at the down. It's fourth down. I believe this is either the state championship game or it's one of the playoff games. And this is one of the big plays. He takes off running, keeps his eyes downfield, and just finds the guys he's about to get hit. It's a big time play.
Yeah,
that was a big time play. Another off platform throw. Come on. Watch this last one, and then we're gonna move on to some of the questions and stuff that we had about this. Great timing. Love this one.
Mm-hmm.
So watch again. He's throwing a corner route. Okay. When he plans to throw, the receiver has just hit the top of his step. The receiver's actually kind of taking a bit of a bad angle at first, but Dante doesn't throw where the receiver's going. He's throwing it to where the receiver's supposed to be. And that's the quarterback's job. Throw the ball where the receiver's supposed to be. If the receiver doesn't get there, then as the receiver's coach, I got him. Trust me, I'll handle his business. You put the ball where it needs to go. Right? Mm-hmm. And it's I mean, I love watching that kid's film, Ryan. It gets me fired up every time.
Yeah, man. He's a coach's dream, to be honest, because at such a young age to have just like an understanding, because like that last throw, I mean, it's a levels concept, which basically means, right, like there's somebody shorter in the flat, there's somebody that's going over top, and you're trying to make that corner guess wrong. Either he stays back on that corner or he comes up on that flat. He saw that the corner is kind of running right to that flat. His body is not in a position where he could back off and make a play on that route. And he saw that very early. Like you said, when he threw that, the kid's angle was not good. And it wasn't like an obvious that the corner was even in a bad position, right? But he just felt it. There's a feel to the quarterback position that you can't always quantify, but you see it on his film.
Right. Got a super sticker from Truman Dumel, and then Truman also makes a comment. Thank you for that, Truman. Truman also says, I hear Dante Moore is better than Archie Manning, except Manning has the royal pedigree. I think that I'll say, yes, I think Dante Moore's, I've said this since last summer. I think Dante Moore is a better player than Arch Manning. I think what has happened with some, though, is I do think Arch is starting to get a little bit of a bad rap from people that aren't that now he's over. I think he's overrated from the standpoint of I don't think he's the number one player in the country. I don't think he's the best quarterback in the country. He's at best number 3 for me. I think he's more of a top 30 to 50 guy as opposed to a top 10 guy. So I think Arch Manning's name has led him to be like the number 1 player in the country. But Arch Manning's a really good football player. You know what I mean? And so technically I think he's overrated, but he's a good football player. And yes, the name helps, but I think that what's kind of happened is a little bit is the name has caused some to kind of ding him more than they should because of the name and underrate him, I think. So yes, overrated, but then you can drop him down a little bit too far. But yeah, Arch is still a good football player. But yeah, I think Dante Moore is better. To me, Ryan, I don't know your thoughts on this. I think the 2 best quarterbacks in the country that I've seen so far, and I've watched most of them, I believe, is Dante Moore and Malachi Nelson. Those are my top 2 quarterbacks in this class. I think Arch is in a conversation with some other guys for that 3rd spot. I think there's a clear 1-2. I think the debate there is who's better, Malachi or Dante. I'm hoping that we get to see those guys battle for years. Because if those guys are battling for years, it means that Dante's going to Notre Dame because Malachi is going to USC. Right? So if those guys are going to battle, then that means, and I'd love to see that. But I think that's more the debate. I think after that is when you start to say, okay, I think that's where you can get some debate in who's 3, who's 4, who's 5. I think that is a little bit closer to where that discussion is. But we did have a couple super chats, I believe, regarding this conversation. I think you did the Niam book conversation break out?
Oh, it happens.
Oh my gosh. First of all, he wasn't 30-3, he was 30-5. So let's talk about like legitimate big time quarterbacks here. We're not gonna go there, but I did want to quickly get to a couple super chats. Mike Huff says obviously Dante is special, but man, Chris is so talented to get either or would be good for me. Am I wrong? Again, I'm not going to sit there and say I'd be upset if Notre Dame got Chris Vizzina, but to me there's a difference. There's a difference. I mean, they're both great. There's both really good prospects. Like there was a comment earlier from Nate Beast, and I get it. If we don't get Dante, that is crushing to the program. And I understand where you're coming from, but no, it's not crushing until you tell me who they get. If they get another Steve Angeli, yeah, that's that's pretty crushing to me. If you get a Chris Vizzina, then you're still got a really good football player. And that's
Right.
the thing is we can't go to it's Dante or bust. It's Dante is I'm all in on Dante, but it's not a Dante or bust scenario for me. There's other really good quarterbacks in the class. You've got to get one of those. Now, if you tell me that if they don't get Dante or Chris Vizzina, then yeah, we might have a different conversation about, whether or not it was there. Shelton Hager with a super chat. Hey man, I hope you're doing good, buddy. I'm still praying for you and your wife and your family with everything you're going through. I know Moore gets asked about every day, and y'all and myself agree that he leans towards Notre Dame. But what other schools are a heavy push for him? If for some reason he didn't pick Notre Dame, where would you guess he would win? Love y'all. I think if he picked another school today, I would lean towards Michigan State.
Same.
I think Miami's in the conversation, but I think they're still third for me right now. And I would say probably somebody that we're not really talking a lot right now. And I think if he doesn't go to Notre Dame, if I had to predict, I would say he's going to go somewhere that we're not expecting right now. But the where things stand right now, I'd say Michigan State and Miami are battling for third or for second. And then whoever is nipping on Notre Dame's heels. This isn't like Notre Dame is way out in front of everybody else. It's not that at all. I think Notre Dame leads, but it's close enough to where if they don't close well, it can be a problem in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Shelton, thank you for the super chat. But Miami, Michigan State, Michigan's in it, but I've never, Ryan, you know this. I was never on going back to when we first started, I was never like it's Dante, it's Michigan's the team I'm worried about. I've never been as worried about Michigan as other people were. Never. And the way that the offseason has gone for them, I'm even less worried about it now, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's obviously with, the Jim Harbaugh, I don't want to call it a debacle, but the back and forth with the NFL. And of course them losing their Gaddis to University of Miami, I think kind of hurts a little bit of the momentum as well. But I agree. I think that even before those rumors started and Gaddis left, I still thought that the Michigan hype was semi-overrated at that point. Obviously they're going to be in the conversation because it's where he's from, right? He's from the state of Michigan. That's the Michigan Wolverines. They're going to be in the conversation. But I agree. You are mute, by the way, Brian, as I finish my point.
Keep talking. You see me talking. Just keep going.
I got you.
I was just going to say the other part is Detroit tends to do well. Michigan tends to do well in Detroit. It's right there. I think that's why why people bought that narrative as well.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And it was, and I would agree just kind of where we're sitting. And if you're in here and you're not in the message board, you would get this stuff for weeks and weeks and weeks. So you should go join the message board.
Months ago.
You should go join the premium message board right now to get all this inside stuff. But yes,
nice plug.
Nice plug. Yeah. Notre Dame has been in a very good spot with Dante Moore. Yeah. And again, it's not anywhere close to a done deal here, right?
They got to close.
They have to.
I would rather be Notre Dame than anybody else, but I don't think Notre Dame's in a position where they can coast or take any. They're still very much in. This is a dogfight still, but sure. I just think they're in a good position, and I just feel like part of it is just knowing Dante the way. And again, I've talked to the kid one time. This is just that conversation, watching how he carries himself, looking at things around him, and just doing this for 2 decades. It's like everything about this, what I hear from other people, what I have heard from him, from me talking to him, from you guys talking to him, Sean talking to him, other people I know. It would surprise me a little bit if Notre Dame isn't able to get this done. It really would, because he's just a Notre Dame fit, like you said, academically oriented, really intelligent, carries himself. He has a lot of swagger, but he's not that arrogant, like in your face about it, right? Like he's not Johnny Manziel. He's not that kind of guy. He's just got that real quiet, subtle. He kind of carries himself like I felt Pat Mahomes did early in his career before he became a bigger name, where now he's on, and I don't have a problem with that, but like he's on commercials and stuff now, and we're starting to see more of his personality, which I find very engaging. I like it. But when Patrick was going through that first big year, he was just a go out there, and he just had that swagger about him, but it wasn't like a brash, in your face, Brett Favre, Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel type of brashness. It was just, hey man, I'm gonna go out here, I'm gonna do my business, and you can't stop me. And I like kids like that.
That's the best part of his game too. When we just kept talking about the back shoulders and how confident of a throw it is, that kind of exudes into his play. There is a confidence about him. That's that swagger, right? Like it's not conceited. It's not, just being a jerk. Like it is just that he's a confident young man. Everything he does, every throw that he makes, this is my favorite thing. There is conviction to it. There's a reason for it. And even bad decisions. I think he threw an interception in the state championship game, if I remember watching it correctly. But even that throw, that ball came out of his hand like he knew it was going to be completed, like it was going to be a big play. That is just how he plays the game. That's a confidence. There's a conviction to how he plays football.
But he doesn't turn the ball over
outside of it. No,
he doesn't turn the ball over a lot because that conviction. He's also a very high IQ football player. And that's another part of his game that I like. From Casey Martinez, thank you for the super chat. Casey, I feel Dante Moore is a quarterback that has great, not elite running ability, but his quarterback intangibles are elite. Everything else is elite about him. I would rather have more. Your take. Also, keep up the great work. Love from Arizona. Appreciate you, Casey. Yeah, man, I'm pretty much on board as saying like he is my pick for this. I mean, he'd be the guy that I would say that's the guy that I feel like you have to go to. And we're going to come back to some of these questions because we do have a lot of questions about this, but I want to get to those afterwards. I do want to kind of talk a little bit about Chris Vizzina because I do think Chris Vizzina is a kid also that I like. That's a good football player that I think does a lot of good things as well. And I want to reiterate again that our feelings on Chris Vizzina are not about that this kid can't play. As you're going to see from the film here in a second, this kid's a talented quarterback. And in any other year, I would be all over Notre Dame's got to go for this guy. So let's get into some Chris Vizzina film here, Ryan. Let me get Casey's super chat down here real quick so we can watch the film. The first thing you notice about Chris Vizzina is he's got much more of a prototypical quarterback build. The 6'3", the big, he's got a really nice frame. I mean, he's going to be 215, 220 when it's all said and done. That to me is the first thing that stood out to me, Ryan, when I look at this kid.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing that comes off, that just immediately pops off the screen to me, is this kid has a really quick release for a longer guy. Sometimes the taller guys they usually have longer arms. It's usually a little bit more of a windup. The ball comes out of his hand. This is
the longest release you'll see from him, I think. Yep. And this isn't a long release, to your point.
No, it's not.
But yeah, good. Really, I don't know if I would call it a quick release as much as I would say it's real compact,
efficient.
And
I would
important
call it efficient.
Yes, and compact is important for me because compact leads a lot more to the ability to do it accurately and quickly. It's a repeatable delivery. It's also a delivery that allows him to throw off platform a little bit. You'll see here. This is also, you see, he's a quality athlete. I don't think he's quite as athletic as Dante from a foot quickness standpoint. I'd say he's a little bit more of a powerful thrower. You see a nice arm, gets it up over top quickly, gets the ball down. He also plays with a lot of confidence. He's a good runner. That to me, this is this is a great run. I don't think this kind of run translates real well to the next level. I think he's more of a can run, can pull the ball on read zones, can move the chains on third down, run for 200-300 yards at the end of the year. He's not a guy, he's not Tim Tebow. You know what I mean? He's not going to go out there and run for 600, 700, 800 yards, in my opinion. More of a more athletic version of Kyle Trask is the way I would like to call him as far as a runner. Where Kyle Trask could run, but you don't want to build it around it.
Right. This is a kid where you're not going to run, quarterback power with him, and you're not going to run a bunch of option runs just in general. But he can run. He can get you 2 to 3 first downs potentially a game with his legs.
Right. And I think if you overplay his pass too much, he can hurt you. I do.
Sure.
I do like that. Now this is one I love right here. You see him keeping his eyes downfield. I'd like to see him stay a little bit deeper in the pocket. He kind of starts to climb a little bit too early there. I don't think he needs to do that. But again, he's a junior in high school. That's going to get corrected real easily. But what I like is as he's moving around, you see him keeping his eyes downfield. I really like that. Now he gets a little bit long here because he gets the ball out of motion, but it's still quick. It goes through quickly because of the compactness. So I don't think he's got the ball where it needs to be, and he has to kind of reset a little bit. So you see there when he steps up, that ball, you can see it pop out to the left. You don't want that popping out to the left because that means he's got it near his left arm, but he's still able to quickly, compactly get it back and get rid of the ball and throw it accurately to a guy coming across the field. That's a good play right there. This is a nice run right here. This is where you see his athleticism. And this is why I think he can be a chain mover for you because he's got some quickness, he's got some speed. I just don't know if he's a guy that I'm going to be designing a bunch of designed runs for. I don't know if that's really what you're using him best for, but he's a good athlete. That's why I say he's a more athletic version of Kyle Trask.
Mm-hmm.
You see him, he kind of feels that pressure. He's got pretty decent pocket awareness for a young player. The willingness to run. And that's just kind of where I see it. This is the kind of things where I think his legs are going to help the most in college. It's stuff like this, Ryan. Not so much like you said on the quarterback powers. It's, okay, nobody's open. I see a hole. I'm going to take off and run, and I've got enough juice to go out there and get, 10, 15, 20 yards. I mean, again,
he's not a statue. He can get out of structure if he needs to.
Right. Against Georgia, he's tackled right there. Right, for a 5-yard gain. But that means you just turned a 1st and 10 play that could have been a sack into a 5-yard gain. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. And if you can make a guy miss, then that's even better. It's even better. This is a nice throw right here. This is good anticipation as well. He sees this guy coming open. It's a wide fade route, right? Mm-hmm. He steps into the pocket, gets it out there, and throws it over top. Some quarterbacks can kind of see this, and you see that guy as open as he is, and you kind of think, I got to put this thing on a line. But you got that safety coming over top. He gets it over top. It gets up and gets down quickly, places it on the outside shoulder. I really like that. This is a tough throw, Ryan.
It is. Yeah, no, it's whenever you're breaking the pocket to the left as a right-hander, it's hard, especially to get your chest square to get you to your target, and he throws it on the run on a back shoulder too, which is another impressive kind of aspect to it.
He's got a lot more. You see this here too, Ryan. He's got a lot more outward swagger than Dante. He's a more fiery competitor than. Okay, make sure people understand this correctly. Dante is a competitor, no question. This kid is a more out of, I don't say, think of a word
animated.
That I don't mean to.
Animated.
Yeah, animated. Yeah, really intense kid. Really intense kid. Tough kid too. I mean,
that's a tough run, man.
I want that one. I would like to see his ball, how he carries the ball, Ryan, a little bit for me at times. I think the ball does too much. That's my only, I think, and sometimes that gets him a little bit out of. He's not quite in the throwing where he needs to be from a let's get it out there. I'd like to see him. Yeah, that's one thing I'd like to see him kind of work on is stop moving the ball around so much. When you're in the pocket, you can even see it there. You can see look how active his elbows are. He's patting the ball. Just be calm, right? Just be calm. But once you get past that, this is a gorgeous throw.
Oh, it is.
I mean, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, first and foremost, the ball jumps off his hand. The arm strength is plus here. There's no doubt about it. The issue that he has is what I thought Trevor Lawrence had a little bit, right? The ball kind of moves up and down a little bit. His elbow gets a little low. So at times he has to kind of, swing a big wind up and he has to reload to try to get that ball back up towards his face where he wants it naturally. But it's kind of weird because it really does kind of, it alters a little bit because there's times where his release looks super quick and the ball's in a good spot, but it's just a little bit inconsistency with how he kind of holds the ball and where that elbow dips.
Because the difference between him and Trevor Lawrence in that regards, your comparison there is correct, but the difference is Trevor had much longer limbs and had a much longer throwing motion, whereas Chris is still more compact, which I like. Again, decent pocket mobility, right? Like, nice, protect the ball, get around, get your eyes downfield. Again, he could run here. He could easily take off running, right? We'll get to it, right here. There's no way that guy's getting to him. He's got the sticks. But I love how he sees this defender standing there at the 12-yard line, sees that guy locking on him, and as soon as he sees that guy lock on him, he knows that guy's not getting to his receiver. So instead of getting a first down, which he could have got with his legs, he gets a touchdown with his arm. I like that. I like that. He's a good football player. You see some toughness here, good instincts, plays with some swagger. I like that. Nice. This is when he's at his best, Ryan. Sets his feet quickly and just snaps it off. Like this is what I like. Look how, for a 6'3" kid with relatively long arms, this is what I mean when I say compact. Look how it is really compact throw. Right over the top. Like the dude running the in cut thinks he's throwing to him. Like he thinks the ball's coming to him. This is also really good anticipation. We talked about this is a similar throw that Dante made. And you look at this throw doesn't look great. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are not making this throw with this cornerback right here where he is. They're just not going to do it. But he understands at the angle that guy is running, there's no way he can get that ball over top. And so he throws the ball over top. Really nice throw. I'd like to get a little bit higher, right? A little bit higher.
Just a little bit.
Love the anticipation, love the timing, love the confidence of that throw. This is another throwing up that seam. I like watching kids throw up the seams. Dante threw up the seams a lot. Chris Vizzina throws up the seams a lot. That's a lot of quarterbacks don't love doing that because there's always, is that backside safety coming? It's a dangerous throw. It's a dangerous throw. Manipulates the pocket, buys himself some time. Like I said, this is a good football player, y'all. This kid can play.
This is the juice right here. You can see when he wants to, he can rip it.
Yeah. Yep. Decent athlete, tough kid. Those, like I said, those kind of plays, you don't want to run a ton of those at the next level. Buying time. Again, he could easily take off. It's third down. He could easily take off and get the sticks, and he does. But look at it. Look at the patience, though, right? And this is what I'm talking about. He could take off right now, but here's what I want you to watch, right? This is what I'm talking about. He could take off right now and see this linebacker stand at the 27-yard line. If Vizzina takes off right now, that kid is looking right at him. He takes off and he goes to try to tackle him. And he's got an angle on him, right? But because he shows patience, he wants to throw it. Once that guy turns his hips because he thinks Vizzina's going to throw, now there's nobody out there. Now look at him, right? I like those guys that want to throw it first. And his instinct there was to throw it and then run it. And that's why it worked for me. I like it. Gets a little bit happy feet at times. I have a feeling if we were to watch full game film that his line doesn't do a great job because he gets pressured a lot. Dante throws from a lot more clean pockets more often than not. You see some good speed there. I'd like to see him get that ball out. His anticipation isn't quite what Dante's is, but it's still good. I mean, he throws this ball a second later, it's getting picked off, right? So good anticipation. Throws it at the gut. This is one of those throws. This is really good ball placement, Ryan, because you do not want this ball at the chest or above. You want this ball at the gut. And that's exactly where he puts it. That's great ball placement. Not just hitting the guy over the middle, but right on his gut. And the reason you don't want it higher is the higher it goes, like if this ball gets dropped where he throws it right in the gut, if he drops this, it's just going right to the ground. Yep. If he throws this ball at the chest or above and he drops it, it's floating up in the air and get picked off by that safety behind it. That's why ball placement's important. Real important.
And I just love how the ball jumps out of his hand, man. Like another just very natural thrower.
Yep. This is this ball just kept going and gets dropped. See how far does he throw this? Throws it from about the 21, lands at about the 21, right? Did I get that correctly?
Wait, let's
Okay,
say
26.
26.
So
Yeah.
that's a 29, 24. That's a 50. That's a 50-plus yard throw.
Mm-hmm. The kid can throw. There's
Nice
no doubt
timing
about
there.
that.
Really nice timing. He knows the route he wants. He knows he's got the one-on-one, but he's got to manipulate, give that guy time to do it. Like see ball out. Said a lot of drops. A lot of drops from his receivers. Keep that in mind when you're looking at his numbers, by the way. I like this. Watch this. He does what I talk about Dante. I'd like to see him protect the ball a little bit more, but he feels that rush, kind of does a nice little slide, keeps his eyes downfield. He never lets that pressure get to him. He just steps up and bam, throws it right to a guy for the first down. That's a really impressive throw. I just like to see him get rid of that ball pat a little bit. I really like to see him get rid of that. A little hitch he's got there. And again, the ball gets up and down really quickly. Not quite as good as again. He's very similar to Dante in a lot of ways. It's just not quite as good of a package, in my opinion. Like never takes his eyes off the read. Ryan gets hit in the back. Never takes his eyes off the read.
I like because I feel like Dante is a little more I would say springy in the pocket, right? Like he's got maybe a little more evasive. Vizzina, on the other hand, like this is kind of I don't want to say Phil Dracovic to a perfect degree, but like he's more of a shrugger in the pocket, right? Like he's going to break some tackles because he's just got kind of a sturdier frame, if that makes sense.
And that's what when we talked about Dante, what was the first thing? The first concern I have is that he just doesn't have he's not real big. And that's exactly why some of those hits that Chris Vizzina is bouncing off of are gonna, maybe bring Dante down. That's why you kind of like that a little bit more. But this ball placement on this is a really nice ball too. This is another little. Is this a sluggo or just a hitch, stop and go? Oh yeah, okay. They're just faking the bubble. Okay, and he just gets it out there, back shoulder. It's a good ball. It's a good ball. Reads the one-on-one and just drops. That ball got dropped too. He needs some new receivers. Look at this. This ball. This is why they cut it off. It goes right through his. You see that? Goes right through his hands. So. This is what I'm saying. Like when you look at his stats, he barely threw for 2,000 yards. He had like 20 some touchdowns. Just keep some of this stuff in mind. That's a touchdown. That should be a touchdown. Right there.
That's a long touchdown too, not a short one.
Was it be 62 yards? 62 yards and a touchdown off of his season total is just gone right there.
Yep.
Oh, I love this throw. It's just throwing right behind the defender. Really like this, right?
And very very subtle on that drop pass too, because you just kind of see his eyes go right to the middle of the field. He kind of holds that safety too to the middle of the field, when he throws that outside vert. So it's a nice ball.
Another drop. This kid gets a lot of feel bad for him. They drop a lot of passes. Little Briarwood. Nice ball. Caught that one. This is playing street ball right here, right? I love quarterbacks that can play street ball when you need to. Like okay, yeah, this ain't gonna work. Like what? Lines getting blown up. I got dudes are right in my face. Okay, this ain't gonna work. So what does he do? I'm just gonna go ahead and take this thing backside for 6. Right? I mean, to me, the best quarterbacks are guys that can play within structure first, but know how to when it's time to play street ball, they know how to play street ball. And what I mean by street ball, it's just what we grew up playing, right? You just play out in the street with your friends. You know what I mean? Like there's no structure, there's no plays, there's no one Mississippi. You're just out there playing. You're just out there slinging it around and running around and just trying to win. That's street ball, and it's what do you want to call it? Playground, whatever the phrase is. I love it. I love kids that can play street ball when they need to, but they don't play that game all the time. I don't want that guy all the time. Oh, nice recovery there. Slips a little bit, keeps his eyes downfield. This kid does not get rattled. This is not a great throw. Like this is so when we talk about great throw from a decision standpoint, we talk about how do things translate. Okay. This ball might get picked off in college. right? Because it floats
Possible.
that corner coming from the top. That cover 3 corners collapsing on that thing in college, right? Cam Hart's breaking that thing up or picking it off, right? And most likely. But what I like about it is it just like the corner thinks he knows where the ball's going, but it just kept going. He threw it from his own 40, slipped, it lands inside the 20. So it's a 40-plus yard throw on a wet field, and he almost slipped before he got the ball out.
Yeah,
and
it's
that
the
impacted the velocity.
Yeah, and it's the arc on that, right? Like it drops out of the air on that one, because you're right. In most situations, that's probably a pass breakup if the corner's in a solid position. But even if he is, I mean, he put that ball with so much air and so much, kind of arc over it that he might still have a shot at it.
Yeah, it just kept going. That's when the guy's going to undercut it. He thinks he's going to pick it off, but it ends up keep going and going and going. And, you make the throw you need to make, right? Nice, quick, get it out quick. His ball placement's not as good as Dante's either, in my opinion. The kid's a gamer, man. I tell you what, Ryan, this kid's a gamer.
Yeah, no,
keeps his eyes downfield. Street ball, man.
I just kind of compared it a little bit to Djokovic, right? If you remember just kind of what Djokovic does, and like it's kind of the same deal, because like Djokovic's a good athlete, obviously, like he can run a little bit, but like it's the sturdiness in the pocket. He breaks a ton of tackles. Think about like how a young, maybe like Big Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh, like that's kind of the vibes I get. He wasn't the most like springy dude. He's not going to evade a bunch of rushers, but like he just shrugged off so many because he's just such a sturdy build, and that's the young Ben Roethlisberger, not the old chubby,
the old can't move statue in the pocket Ben. Yeah, this kid, it's a good football player. We'll watch this one last clip, and then it's a nice ball right there. Yeah, just move over and snap it off. I like that. So what we did not do when we first started talking about Chris Vizzina is to pull up sort of his recruiting profile. So this is Chris Vizzina's recruiting profile. So as we talked about before, is he the Pied Piper overall? We talked about this afternoon in an earlier show. Is he the Pied Piper that Dante Moore is as an entire class? I don't think so. But when you're a consensus top 100 quarterback, your receivers are going to notice. Right? Like Chris Vizzina is not going to commit to Notre Dame or Clemson or Georgia and be like, wait a minute, who'd they sign? And that's not happening, right? Receivers are going to know who he is. Now, maybe the stud D-end and the stud linebacker and the stud corner and the stud left tackle may not know who he is, but receivers are going to know who the kid is, right? Like this is the thing. This is and I think the ranking is legitimate, Ryan. I don't know if I would quite put him like right now, if we're basing it off of where guys are today. I don't know if I would quite put him as high as 54 because there's some things I want to work on. I'd probably have him closer to On3 and ESPN, but the ceiling is there. He's definitely got the ceiling to me. He's got a 5-star ceiling to me. I just think he needs a little bit more work. And the other thing too is I think his arm is going to get stronger. When you see pictures of him, he's the kind of big-bodied kid, Ryan, that goes to college and sees another jump in arm power. Not arm talent, but arm power, I think.
For sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree, because I think that his frame kind of is going to parlay with a lot of weight development, right? Because he's like a 6'3" kid, and he looks kind of sturdy in the pocket, but he's only 200 pounds. I mean, this kid could legitimately be a good 215, maybe 220. Towards the end of his career. So there's definitely physical development that could happen. And I agree with you. I was going to say, I think somewhere 75 to 100, somewhere in that range would be a fair ranking for Chris Vizzina. Definitely a top 100 player, though, in my opinion, in the class, overall player. So there's development to be had. I think one thing that is an interesting comparison between Dante and a guy like a Christopher Vizzina is I think the upside factor, like you kind of said with Vizzina, I think in an earlier show, is that like if they both hit maybe to their ceilings, they might be similar players. I think the difference is, and it won't maybe be the necessity, is that I think Dante Moore can go into college and he can compete a little earlier just because he kind of has some of the nuances. He's a little more advanced from kind of a proactive perspective. Vizzina's a kid that probably needs a year, right? He needs a little bit of a maturation. He needs a little bit of that, adjustment to the college game, but the ceiling is certainly there. There's no question.
Right. I've had some people say, and I've had this conversation before. I don't know if I've said this or not, but I've had some people say, well, look, Vizzina's got the higher ceiling. I would say 10 years ago, when we look at the ceiling, meaning projecting to the NFL.
Sure.
So, Vizzina will be the higher draft pick. Even if they're both great players, Vizzina, and I say, 10 years ago, I would have said yes. But I think the game is changing enough to where as long as Dante can get to 205 and just, build up his frame and all that, I think it still comes down to, can you sling it? Can you make good decisions? Like, how do you throw it? Because I don't think Vizzina has a stronger arm than Dante right now. I think it's close, but I think Dante has the better arm right now. And that was a discussion I was having with a buddy of mine. He's like, if Vizzina has a better arm, I was like, no. But it's in the ballpark. It's in the ballpark. I think Vizzina. I think the other thing too is when you compare the two, I think Dante's a little bit more effortless. Vizzina has to kind of maybe wind up a little bit more to throw. He's got to not wind up. He's got to muscle up the deep ball a little bit more than I think Dante does. I think that is something that I would say is true. Thoughts on that, Ryan?
No, I agree. I think that Dante is maybe a little bit more of a natural deep ball thrower because I think that he kind of throws from different platforms a little better. I think that he throws from different angles, right? Like you saw, again, comparing it to a pitcher, he's got different he's got different tools in his box, I think, compared to a Vizzina. But you see Vizzina, one thing I love about him is like on those deep in-breaking routes, right? Like you see that ball jumps out of his hand. And he's one of those guys that if he's late to a window, he has that like Drew Lock to him to a degree where like he can fit that thing if he's a little late with it.
Right. See, look at you trying to suck up to me met with the Drew Lock reference. I love Drew.
Hey man, I liked Drew coming out of Missouri. I did.
I still do. I think he's one of those guys you're going to look back and be like, oh, so it was a coaching problem. I get it. Yeah, I get
Could
it.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
I get it. So we have a couple comments here that I want to kind of get to about Vizzina and Dante. Just a couple of the comments about Vizzina that I would like to kind of bring up. Some people kind of making some comments that I think, make a lot of sense. Don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but I see where they're coming from. And this is one from Ed. He says, if developed correctly, Vizzina could be the better player, but Dante seems like more of a slam dunk. He also said Dante seems like a more like a natural that won't need much time to master the offense. Vizzina is very talented, but it looks like he'll need a little bit more time to develop. So I think Ed has a really fair view of Vizzina and Dante. I think he sees like that, what you talked about, the need for, hey, he's going to need a little bit more time. He falls into the camp of Vizzina could end up being better. It could, yes, he could. But what I say is like, if Dante doesn't pan out and Vizzina does, yes, he could be better. The discussion that we're having is, and this is where Ed is coming from, is I think what Ed's saying and what the debate is, Ryan, is if they both reach their full potential, well, then Vizzina is going to be the better player. I think it's possible. I think it's it's close enough to where, and the frame is such that it's possible. I still won't go there because I still think Dante has more arm talent. He's got the more natural throwing motion. He doesn't pad. It's a cleaner motion. I think he's even more effective throwing off platform than Vizzina is, in my opinion. And so at the end of the day, I still feel like Dante would be the better player if they both reach their full potential. But if they both reach their full potential, I'll say this, it's going to be a lot closer than it is now. Because I think right now Dante's clearly the better player. If they both reach their full potential, Dante will still be up here, but Vizzina will certainly gain on him. I do believe that. I do believe that.
I think the ceilings are pretty close to one another. I would definitely give Dante a little bit of an edge, but I think that they're relatively in the same ballpark as far as if they both reach potential. I think the difference is, and you're talking about the nuances, and you're talking about I think that the advancement of a guy like a Dante Moore. I think that the floor is substantially higher for a guy like a Dante Moore. Like someone says slam dunk. Like I wouldn't quite say slam dunk because nothing's ever a certainty, but like you feel really good about Dante Moore translating to at least be a very good player on the college level. Like you feel good about that.
Yep. let's get to a couple more guys before we kind of get into some of the big picture questions that people have as we get into this. And the next guy that we want to talk about is Jackson Arnold. Let me take down the comment here from Ed. It was just such a good comment that I didn't want to take it down. You know what I mean? Just really wanted to leave it up there for a while. No, there we go. Okay. All right. Jackson Arnold. Now, Jackson Arnold is actually a commit to Oklahoma. The reason that we're still going to talk about him is because the thought at the time was that, and I think there's still something to this, although I think Jackson is a little bit more firm in his commitment to Oklahoma now than some people thought he would be, is that he still has talked about still wanting to make a visit to Notre Dame and still likes Notre Dame. I believe Notre Dame is still communicating him, so we are going to talk about him. But there was also some discussion that, Jackson Arnold, wanted to commit to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame said no. The context behind that is Jackson Arnold had talked to Notre Dame about committing, but he wanted to take visits first. And Notre Dame said, don't commit until you're done taking visits, basically, which was, in my opinion, Notre Dame's kind of way of saying, they like Jackson Arnold. I know they like Jackson Arnold a lot. I think Notre Dame likes Jackson Arnold a lot more than I do. But they also weren't necessarily ready to take that commitment yet because it was so early. And I think that I'm kind of glad it played out the way that it did, because I think they might have got a commitment, which maybe helps them with Peyton Bowen and some other guys. But to me, Ryan, the ranking is interesting because obviously two of the services have him as a top 50 player. Rivals has him at number 66. And then On3 has him at 139. For me personally, and we actually haven't talked about this, so I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. I personally would have him closer to where On3 has him, maybe even a touch lower, if we're just talking about projecting to how they translate to the next level. Because I think Jackson Arnold is a heck of a high school quarterback. I mean, a heck of a high school quarterback. I don't think his skill set translates as well, in my opinion, as some of those other guys. And we'll pull up the film here in a second, but I'd probably have him, maybe lower, but I think I'd probably have him in like the 100 to 125 range is probably where I would fall on Jackson Arnold, probably closer to the 125. I definitely don't see him as a top 50 overall player. And I definitely don't have him ranked higher than Christopher Vizzina, which I think three of the recruiting services let me pull it up here. Vizzina, let's see here. Rivals 66. So Rivals is the only one that has Vizzina ranked higher than Jackson Arnold. Correct? Yes.
Yes.
I don't see that. I don't see that at all.
Well, I'll say for me, I'm relatively in the same ballpark. Like 100 to 125, I think is absolutely fair. I think from a perspective of, and this is I think a great talking point is, I think the difference between Dante Moore and Chris Vizzina is a lot wider than the difference between a Christopher Vizzina and a Jackson Arnold. Like I consider Jackson Arnold and Christopher Vizzina pretty close. I feel like I may like Jackson just a slight more than you do, because I don't think that it's a slam dunk for me that Vizzina is above Arnold. I think that is a great talking point. And I think that they're relatively in the same ballpark. Arnold's different, a much different player than a Christopher Vizzina, which makes it an imperfect comparison. But I think I may favor Arnold just a little more comparative to you, but I think that we both relatively think that he's in the same ballpark as far as caliber of player nationally, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. And I think a debate can be had, because clearly two other recruiting services think he's a top 50 player. So I don't think it's a
I don't
slam
see
dunk.
that.
Right.
No.
But somebody does, right? And somebody's staking their reputation on that. You think he's closer to Vizzina. So I mean, what my point is with Jackson is there can be some debate with him. The thing I would say is if you flip them in teams and you put Jackson Arnold at Briarwood Christian and you put Chris Vizzina out at Denton Guyer, I don't think it's a discussion. I don't think it's a debate.
It's fair. It's fair.
And that's kind of where I come. I think that Jackson benefits from playing on a team that's got a bunch of Division I football players on it, right? And a great level. Now he plays against better competition too, right? So that's not meant to disparage him, because Jackson Arnold's a good football player. It's just the other part is just when I project, and we'll pull up the film and we'll kind of get into that. There's a ton of great questions, so I want to kind of get to some of that, but I want to watch the film first here. So let's watch Jackson Arnold. Right, this is from this past season at Denton Guyer. I'll say this: he got a lot better as a junior than he was as a sophomore, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
One thing he's got to work on, Ryan. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go first.
His footwork of the three needs the most work. You see how he's kind of stiff-legged there. It really prevents him from driving. He's got to get a lot more of a bend. You see this a lot from him. You see it on the first two plays. He's very stiff-legged when he throws. And I think that takes a little bit away from it. You see he doesn't set his feet at all. Very light on his feet, very stiff-legged. I think that is something that could help him a little bit moving forward too by making him a little bit more effective, getting a little bit more zip on the football.
Yeah. When I think of Jackson Arnold in the perfect situation, like I think that he would be an absolute perfect fit at let's say an Ole Miss with their heavy RPO system. Like that's this kid for me, and I think that hurts his footwork a little bit because everything is just getting out so quick. Sometimes when he has to navigate a pocket, he is a little stiff, like you said, because it's just everything's supposed to be coming out quick. You're not supposed to have to reset and shuffle and navigate a pocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, here's something that improved a lot for him. First of all, it's funny you say Ole Miss because who's he committed to? Oklahoma. Where did the offensive coordinator from Oklahoma come from? Jeff Lebby. Ole Miss.
Lebby, yep.
His arm strength improved a lot from sophomore to junior year. This is a 50-yard toss. Now, he's stepping up, right, which helps. But he launches this sucker. It covers a lot of distance, and it doesn't get up quite up and down as quickly as the others, but that's a good throw.
For sure.
And he's got some gamer to him. Like, I think I'll say this, Jackson Arnold is what a lot of people thought Ian Book was.
Mm-hmm.
Plays a lot of street ball, but man, that's an athletic move right there, man. Like to me, his running, you tell me if you agree or disagree with this, Ryan, and I told you before, you're allowed to disagree. His running ability translates a lot better to the next level than I think Chris Vizzina's does.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that. Like this is a kid that I could see some option off of the, I could see some read option. I could see, off the RPO game extends. Oh, 100%. Yep. I agree.
This ball gets up and down in a hurry. This is a 40-yard toss and he just flicks it. It doesn't get any air on it at all. Now I'd like to see him get it out in front a little bit more, but this is a good ball. It's good zip, good velocity. Just lead it out in front. Because if this corner's in tighter coverage, it's getting broken up. Right? So he benefits from his receiver just smokes the guy. If this is good coverage, that's a breakup. But I like the velocity. I like the distance. I like how quickly he gets up and down. I like that play right there because he doesn't manipulate the pocket. He manipulates the pocket. He doesn't get worried about the pressure. Keeps his eyes downfield. That's something all three of these kids have shown. Like they just do not get rattled by the pressure. Hey, look at that guy. We recognize that guy, don't we?
He's a pretty good player.
Yeah, he's not bad at all. Here's to me one of the biggest differences between Dante Moore and Chris Vizzina and then Jackson Arnold is as we watch these clips, ball placement is not close. Like he makes a lot of throws that are in the area where they need to be, but not like the kind of perfect ball placement. His guys end up making great. That was great ball placement right there.
That was great ball placement.
This is a throw. Yes, but he just does it to me consistently, especially on like the 20-yard and in throws. His ball placement isn't quite as sharp, in my opinion, as some of those other guys.
Mm-hmm.
I love how quick and compact his release is. You can see it right here. He's got a really clean, quick release, just snaps that thing out there. And that's a deep shot. I mean, it's not like he's snapping off a 5-yard crossing route like that. That thing gets up and down really well, right where he needs it to be. Again, this is a kid that likes to run, but he takes off running and he keeps his eyes downfield and it pays off. He gets a big play. And I think that this is the state championship game right here.
Yeah.
This is against Westlake, correct?
That's Westlake. Yep.
Yeah. And that's an impressive play. Keep the eyes downfield.
I really do like Brian. I don't know if you 100% agree with me, but I agree with the stiffness in the lower body a little bit, the mechanics, but I think the upper body mechanics are really good. Like
Yeah.
I like how he carries the football. I like
Yeah.
how the release. I think everything up top is clean.
Yes, very clean. I'll say this about his lower body. I do like the fact that he hops a little too much, but I like the instinct of don't get heavy-footed in the pocket. Running that offense, you can't get heavy-footed in the pocket. You've got to be loose on your feet because you've always got to be ready to step and throw the football. But no, I think he's got a really clean, like this throw right here. This is a great throw and great instincts because this guy's sitting right there. Like, okay, I know this is a confident throw too. Like, I got to angle. I got to get the ball over top of this guy, get that touch out, and doesn't lead the guy to the sideline either. And he's got a really nice clean throwing motion. Takes off again. This to me translates. You'll see him make plays like this in college.
He's slippery. He's a slippery runner.
Yes, real shifty. And you talk about Ole Miss like that. To me, that's some Matt Corral-ness to him as a runner.
Agreed.
Matt Corral to me isn't a great runner. He put up really good numbers, but he finds holes. He can be elusive. He's got a lot of that to him. Which again, we're talking about that Ole Miss offense that he's going to be running at Oklahoma. I think he fits it pretty well.
For sure.
I think one thing I noticed too from the game film, he does seem to lock in on reads a little bit more than I would like, which is sort of a nature of a little bit of that RPO air raid offense. It does a nice deep ball. Really nice deep ball. But I mean, it's an offense where there's going to be to be at Notre Dame. The other thing is, I think there'd be a little bit more of a learning curve for Jackson Arnold than the other quarterbacks. You mentioned the Ole Miss offense. I mean, look, that's a really simplified basic offense from a read standpoint. And he kind of runs that in high school, and he locks in on guys. I think that is something where there would be some time he'd have to adjust at the next level for Notre Dame, because Notre Dame runs a little bit more of a pro style. Go through progressions, go through reads. He doesn't have the anticipation that the other guys have, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now,
like that throw right there, that's got to come out quicker, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. He reads numbers and areas. He doesn't read progressions, if that makes sense.
That's an air raid. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Exactly right. You're exactly right. Like that right there, that translates. He's just a gamer. That's the thing. I could sit here and pick Chris, as a former quarterback and a quarterback's coach. I could pick Chris Vizzina apart. I mean, Jackson Arnold apart all game, all day, just from a mechanic. I mean, it's just some mechanical things got to work out. But the thing about him, Ryan, kid just makes a lot of plays.
Yeah, no, he's got that little, like, that gritty type of, like, he's gonna dive. That's what I say, man.
He is in high school. What people thought Ian Book was in college, but really wasn't, because this kid's got some guts when he throws the football. But just like you think you got him stopped, and all of a sudden he just, oh shoot, he pulled up and threw the ball 35 yards over your head. You're like, oh man. Like this is another throw. I love the guts here. I love the grittiness here. I don't love the ball placement there. It's not bad, just little sooner, but he just zips that sucker in there, and the corner doesn't have time to respond. Kid's a good football player. I think there's a bit more of a drop off between 1 and 2 and him, in my opinion. This is good. This is pretty good timing right here. He reads this high. This is just a post stop concept, basically. Just post over top. You're reading that safety. So like you see that safety right here. The safety sits on the stop. As soon as you see that safety flat foot, you've got a one-on-one over top on the post route. He sees it. He knows where he's going to go with the football, buys time, and then just lets it grow. That's pretty decent timing there. Pretty good ball. Gets it over the top, leads the guy. I love this grittiness here. Just love this kid. And he keeps his eyes downfield. Like most quarterbacks, once they get hit like that, they're just looking for an escape to run. But as soon as he gets out of the pocket, he gets his eyes back downfield and finds his player. This kid's fun to watch. Like Yeah, am I using his tape as teaching tape, Brian? No, I'm not. If you get back into coaching high school football, are you going to use Jackson Arnold's film as teaching tape on how to mechanically play the football? No.
No.
But if I'm going to teach someone like, hey, how do you just go make plays? Let's watch a little bit of Jackson Arnold.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, he's not teach tape, but he's a kid that you want on your football team.
Yeah, you're going to go to war with that kid, man. He's going to battle. He's going to give everything he's got. He's going to leave it all out there. He just, to me doesn't quite have the same tools as other kids. But I just look at that toughness.
Yep. And he certainly fits that Lebby offense, man. He fits it.
That's a nice curl route throw right there. Good timing. Gets that ball out pretty quickly. It's good. It's good stuff right there. That's one of his better throws, in my opinion. That one right there. So that is Jackson Arnold. It's good. You said good football player. Just to me, not an elite football player. And the other thing too is he also doesn't have the ceiling. I don't see the ceiling of those other two kids, in my opinion.
No.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Like if this kid maxes out, do you think if all three max out, do you think he's in the same league as Vizzina and Dante Moore?
No. I think that Arnold has a good floor to him. Like I think that there's a sound floor where you can project into being a good college quarterback. Like I think that, but I mean, when we're comparing arm strength, we're comparing. I mean, athleticism. I think he's on par. Like he's a good athlete for sure. But when you're just talking about like there's no limits, in my opinion, if Christopher Vizzina is developed properly or Dante Moore developed properly. Like there's no part of the field that they can't touch, right? There is. I think there's just some parts of the field where Jackson Arnold's just going to have some limitations, and it's not. Some guys have been very successful doing that, so it's not a big deal.
And that's why I think the air raid is such a good fit for him, because I think the air raid will mask some of those things, in my opinion. Like I think Matt Corral has had a lot of issues masked because of the offense he plays in that will get exposed when he gets to the next level, in my opinion. So yes, I think that's a great point right there. So let's get to our last guy, and that is Avery Johnson. And I'm going to be honest with you, I love this kid. Like you're talking about a kid that you would never show another quarterback from a teaching tape standpoint, but just I want that kid on my football team. That's Avery Johnson. And his rankings are all over the place. ESPN has him as a borderline top 100 player, 247 Sports, 153 overall. Rivals has him as number 235 overall. And On3 doesn't even have him in their top 300. They do have him as a 4-star, so he is a consensus 4-star player, but he clearly doesn't have the ranking of the other guys. ESPN obviously, has him ranked highest, but they still have him 60 spots behind Jackson Arnold if you see those two rankings. So, obviously not as highly ranked as the other guys on the board, Ryan, but I'll say this about Avery Johnson. Here's what makes him unique. Number one, the gap between his floor and his ceiling is as good as big as anybody. I mean, way bigger than anyone we've discussed today, right? Like definitely greater. The other thing I love about Avery Johnson, and we're going to see this on film, is I think the kid could play somewhere else if he can't stick a quarterback.
He's an athlete. He's an athlete for sure.
He's the one quarterback I would have taken early if Dante understood we're going to take two quarterbacks. I'd say go get Avery Johnson, because the thing I would have told Dante is like, Dante, if you come here and you beat him out, which we think you would do, that kid you're going to be throwing passes to him in a couple of years. You know what I mean? Like this kid's a legitimate Division I athlete, not just a quarterback. But I'm going to say this right now. If I had to take between him and Jackson Arnold, it was up to me. Who am I going to take? And those are my two options, and I missed out on Dante and Vizzina. I'm taking Avery Johnson because I think he's more of a playmaker, and I think he's got more ceiling, in my opinion.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And a little more position flexibility, versatility goes into that aspect.
I just think he has a higher ceiling as a quarterback too, right? Like to where, both of them I have questions about both of them as throwers. So I'm going to take the more dynamic athlete is really what it boils down to.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yep. That's what it boils down to.
I actually had a name that popped in my head when I was watching Avery Johnson film, Brian. A blast from the past. A little Dennis Dixon for you at Oregon.
That. And I still believe he would have had that Oregon team that year where he got hurt. Was it against Arizona State? I would have loved to see what that Oregon team could have done before he got hurt, because they were rolling when he was their quarterback. Yes, I like that. Dennis Dixon, that's a good comp. And I think Avery has a little bit more natural throwing ability, but that dynamic playmaking ability I like that. I like that. That's a good one, Ryan. When you get
That's what
those
I'm here
good
for,
comps,
man.
man, it's like it just hits you. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
like I
Yep.
get that one.
I was like, can you just imagine this kid in like that the little more old school Oregon uniform running the read option? Like, can you see it?
Oh yeah. Oh, now that you say it, like absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Now that you brought it up, so let's look at Avery Johnson, and he is from obviously as we talked about, he's from Kansas. Very interesting player, Ryan. Very intriguing player.
Sure is.
More of a run throw guy. He's the one run throw guy that we have on the board. I'll tell you what, though, his throwing ability improved a lot as a junior. He really improved a lot as a junior.
Yeah, I actually watched his I watched his sophomore highlight tape, I believe, first, Brian, and I was actually I feel like I got some, like, I don't want to say preconceived notions because I obviously had watched film, but I was much more projectable with what I saw on his ability as a passer as a junior than sophomore. Like I didn't think he looked like a next level passer as a sophomore.
He looked like a
junior
receiver
was a lot
playing
better.
he looked like a receiver playing quarterback as a sophomore.
Yep.
As a junior, he looked like an athletic quarterback. This play right here is kind of what we talk about. Like when he turns the jets on, I mean, this is right there. It's like, okay, that kid can move.
That's translatable.
He can throw a post route and run a post route. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is a nice ball. Now, as a sophomore, this ball is about 3 feet shorter than that. Like, this is a nice ball. And the thing that he improved too, and the reason I say it would have been 3 feet short, he would have thrown this ball much later as a sophomore. Watch the timing. Like, he is right now, and that guy is not out of his top end yet. Like, his anticipation improved a bunch as a junior. Like, I really like this. This kid improved a ton for me. Like, this is, you talking about a gamer, talking about a kid that plays street ball. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, I really liked what I saw from Avery Johnson as a junior. He got a lot better as a passer to me. Love the patience.
I like his frame too, because I know somebody asked, like, what's his weight. I think he's listed at like 6'2", 170. So he obviously is a little bit underweight right now, but he has a frame where he could put on a substantial amount of weight pretty quickly.
You see the athleticism here, like that move right there. Again, this is a kid from Kansas, right? But that translates, Ryan.
Yep.
That move right there, that translates. Now, protect this thinking football, right? You know, I'm gonna say that. But right there, now it's gone. I mean, now you watch the speed. That translates, right? As I've always said, if you're a 4.5, you're a 4.5 no matter what your level of competition is. Your speed
and I know Kansas isn't obviously the best high school football, but I mean, to see if things are translatable, he's the best athlete on the field, right? Like, there's no question about it. And that is an important thing to kind of decipher, is the fact that for him to translate to the next level in a lower level of competition, he has to be the best athlete on the field at all times, and he is.
This is another thing. His arm strength improved as a junior. This is okay. He's throwing it from the 46-yard line, and he throws it into the end zone. And this is a relatively effortless throw, Ryan. He does not muscle up this ball. This is almost a 50-yard chuck that he just kind of snaps off, gets up and gets down, and it gets over the top. His arm strength got a lot better. Like, I really liked, and then this is where he's just special, in my opinion.
The kid can run. The kid
can
run for sure.
Yes, he can. Yes, he can. I have a friend that he says Notre Dame should never recruit him. And I said, why is that? And he just kept coming up. I said, that's BS. That's BS. Come on, man. And it came out, he's like, I just can't stand the kid. I can't stand his hair. Because Avery's got like really long blonde hair, like, you know, like long blonde curly hair. And he can't get past it. He just can't get past the fact that the kid's got long. I mean, he looks like a 1980s rocker. Like he's like the guitarist for Bon Jovi or something like that. You know what I mean?
Your friend sounds jealous, man.
He does. And if you met my friend, you'd know he has some hair issues, but he's very jealous. But the athleticism is there. But his arm strength got a lot better as a junior, Ryan, and I really liked that. Now he's got a lot to learn as a passer, and when you see game film, you see what I'm talking about, right? Like, when you watch game film, you see a kid that, like, he doesn't go through his progressions real clean and all the time, and he kind of street balls a lot. And I think he threw like 8 interceptions, which for how often they throw is kind of a decent amount of picks. He doesn't throw it as much as like Dante does. Oh, I love this play. But, man, he's a gamer. You see this? Like, come on, man. Like,
That's
third
that's
down.
like, man, that's like coaching freshman football, and they have that one good
Yes.
athlete that you guys can't tackle him. It's just so frustrating.
Yeah,
He's that kid.
it's 3rd and 5. They're down a touchdown in the 4th quarter. The center launches it over his head. This happened in the NFC Championship game. He picks it up, and first of all, look how cleanly he picks this ball up. Like, it just, okay, got it. Get out of my way, ref. Again, is he going to do this against Alabama? No. He's sacked like back there against Bama. The point is you see the athleticism at play, right? And that's the thing that you really like. The kid is an athletic guy. Got to work on his throwing mechanic. His arm, he has an inconsistent throwing motion.
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks really nice. And other times it's like, what was that? Like, that's not your normal throwing motion. But this kid can play. He can play around. And that's the thing. If he can't stick a quarterback, you can move him somewhere else. It's a nice ball right here. When he wants to power it, he can power it. This thing is a seam right. He just throws this on a line. And this kid's a good quarterback.
Now, he definitely has enough juice in his arm. There's no doubt. It's just there's some technical flaws that need to be filled out, but he can play quarterback at the next level. But he also gives you that versatility where, like, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to watch this and question if this kid is a college athlete, Division I athlete.
Right. This kid is a top 150 national player just as an athlete. And I really do like this kid as a player, Ryan. I really do. Maybe I have some biases because of how he plays, but, man, this kid's just fun to watch. He makes plays. And, I love the growth. I love the growth he made as a player. And I think there's still another big jump that's potentially there.
Yeah.
So somebody asked me the other day, we're doing comps for Tyler Buckner. And one that people keep giving me is Marcus Mariota. And I just don't see that for Tyler Buckner. This is a guy that I think compares on how he throws and the athleticism and the body type to Marcus Mariota coming out of high school.
I think this is a better comp to Mariota too. I would agree with that one. Yeah. It's just it's the frame, right? Like, that's what makes Buckner a little unique. Is like he's just got like a very different frame.
Yeah,
like kid's
Mariota
long.
And Mariota's had like a really long kind of a weird, like, he didn't look like a natural thrower, right? Which I think is what hurt him in the NFL. Tyler's got a much more compact, clean, repeatable delivery. This kid, to me, reminds me a lot more. And so, to your point of the comp that you came up with earlier about Dennis Dixon, again, same system, same thought process, right? I think Chip Kelly was the OC on those teams with Dennis Dixon, and then he was the head coach when they recruited Mariota, correct? I don't think he ever actually coached Mariota, but I think he recruited Mariota. Helfrich actually recruited him, but it's the same system, right? Because Chip Kelly was the OC, and then Helfrich was Chip Kelly's OC. But that's like, to me, to your point, if Chip Kelly's not all over this kid, I'm actually go look that up. Does this kid have a offer from UCLA? I got to look this up, because if not, I think Chip Kelly's given up on his offense. This kid absolutely needs to have an offer from no offer from UCLA.
I was about to say I could be wrong, but I didn't think he did. No,
Chip's losing it. He's losing it, because this is exactly the kind of kid that he made a living with for years when he was coaching before. So, this kid's a good player. Now, as I said before, if you're going to take two quarterbacks, this is the only other kid I would have taken as the second quarterback. Simply because you could sell to Dante Moore, if you beat this kid out, you're going to be throwing passes to this kid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I would have definitely, I would have given him a stronger look than I think that they did, in my opinion.
It's fair.
Like, this is the one disagreement I have with the coaching staff when it came to their quarterback evaluation. I look at this kid and I say, Jackson Arnold might be a better player today. But again, I put him in reverse. You put that kid on Denton Geyer's high school team, that kind of athlete on the field, I think the kid can play.
With that coaching too, right? Like, the development would be different just from a physical perspective as well. So
Agree. So I really like Avery Johnson. If if Notre Dame misses out on Vizzina and Dante Moore and they want to go take a flyer on that kid, I would take a flyer on him. I wouldn't necessarily be tremendously excited about it. However, if that's the only quarterback, I'd have to know who they're going to get in 2024 because, again, lower floor. And you run the risk of if you take another low floor guy, high ceiling, we're talking about this kid maybe will play receiver. Notre Dame can't afford to recruit a quarterback in 2023 that's going to end up playing receiver, you know. But if they got him, I'd be happy because they got a talented kid. But I'd be a little nervous about this kid's going to need some time to develop as a quarterback. I don't know how well he fits Notre Dame's system per se. Because I don't think he has the natural, the thing about Buckner is they're very comparable athletically. Him and Avery Johnson are very comparable athletically. I think Buckner was way more advanced as far as being a pocket passer than Avery Johnson was at the same age. And that's the difference between the two. He's a more natural reader. Buckner had, we talk about the anticipation that Dante Moore has. Buckner was similar to that as a junior. We didn't get a chance to see him develop as a senior, but
that's
a gap year, man.
It's a gap year. It's like education right now, right? These kids went through this period where they're doing online learning and they're not, in the classroom, they're not being developed, quote unquote, right? We're kind of talking about with this quarterback, some of these players, and we're seeing that articulate from the college game all the way up to the NFL draft scene. There's just some underdevelopment, and people think it's an excuse, but Tyler Buckner literally missed 2 out of the last 3 high school seasons as far as development playing football. So it's a thing, man. There's gap years here.
So those are the 3 quarterbacks we looked at, Ryan, or 4 quarterbacks we looked at. I think how we had them is how you and I would rank them now. Correct? Dante number 1, Vizzina 2, Jackson Arnold 3, and Avery Johnson 4. However, that would not be the order in which I would take them. That's my ranking of them now if I'm doing a top 250, just because I think Jackson is a little bit more advanced than Avery is. But if I'm talking about just looking at how I think they would develop, I would rather take a flyer on Avery Johnson. However, I think the argument that could be made for Jackson Arnold is the floor is higher. And as we talked about, can Notre Dame afford to take a chance on a low floor, high ceiling guy? That would be the debate for me at this point in time. So it would just be about where your confidence level is, in my opinion. Here's an interesting comment from the Cut 2009. I am an alumni of Detroit King, and I hope you all get this kid. This will be big for Detroit and the PSL. I agree, because the PSL doesn't produce a lot of Notre Dame type of guys, and it's just a different stigma than just going to Michigan or Michigan State, right? Wow, that kid from a Detroit public school went to Notre Dame. Wait a minute. They had to make an exception for him, right? No. Wow. 4.0 student? Get out of here. I think that can change. Because, look, let's be honest, Brian, there's perceptions about all types of things. There's stereotypes and stigmas and about all types of things and all types of different things. And when it comes to football, and I think that would say a lot. Wow, hey, you know what? Hey, rest of the country, you may want to think twice about just ignoring the Detroit Public School League, because there's some dudes in there that, they just had a quarterback last year that went to Notre Dame, right?
Well,
I think
that's a changing ideology behind Marcus Freeman's mission as a recruiter, in my opinion, right? They're identifying what is viewed as a traditional Notre Dame fit, right? It's not just the Catholic schools anymore. It's not just these feeder schools that go to Notre Dame. It's evaluating players in different situations.
Yeah. So I love the comment, and I like hearing someone who's an alum say that they hope he gets there, because I'd be curious how many other people feel that kind of same way, if there is anybody. So that's going to be our breakdown of the 4 quarterbacks. Before we end here, Ryan, we do have some questions that we want to get to that we've kind of starred that we're gonna pull up. So we're gonna answer those questions as we kind of go through this. So Q Kibbs says, Brian, have you talked about how you grade out Dante higher than some of the other guys above him? What sets him above an Arch, a Nico, a Malachi Nelson? Hope this wasn't taken out of context. So I personally have always liked Dante more than any other quarterback in this class. That's just me. But I also would, if you were going to say, hey, I think Malachi Nelson is better, I'm not going to sit there and like argue with it about it. I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, cool. That's the only one, though. I think those two kids, to me, are clearly the two best quarterbacks in this class. I think Nico, I think people fall in love with Nico. Has a powerful arm.
He's got a bazooka. Yeah.
Yes. But there's some things about him as a player that I don't necessarily love, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. There are some things about him that I question his fit at Notre Dame. I think that the physical talent right now is a little bit beyond the quarterback intangible talent, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's with Nico, you're taking a bit of a chance on hoping that the talent turns out and projects. Whereas if we had this conversation about with Chris Vizzina, and if they both hit their ceiling, is Vizzina better than Dante Moore? I don't think so. If Nico works past some of the things that I think plague him right now as a player, I don't know if there's a quarterback in the class with a higher ceiling than him, because he is athletic. He's big. I think he's going to fill out and be 215, 220. I think he just, even though he's on the skinnier side now, Ryan, I don't think he's going to stay skinny. I think he's going to fill out. And like you said, man, the arm is really powerful.
It's special. Yeah, no, the arm, like if you're just watching a kid throw a football as hard as he can into a tight window, Nico's your guy. And I mean, he might be one of the best in the last few cycles, to be honest. Like the kid can rip it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the kid can rip it. It's the naturalness of the throwing of the way he throws, though, right? Yeah. Like there's a wind up to it, but I mean, the thing comes out of his hand with incredible force,
which is like always going to be there to a degree because he's so long. He's got that Trevor Lawrence-ness to him, and you just can't help that. I mean, you can't shrink his arms 4 inches, but he can make up for it, as you said, with just about 8 more miles per hour than than you're normally going to see. But I don't see the feel, I don't see the touch always. But I'm curious to see how he's going to develop. But talking about him going, Oregon really likes him, and they're making a push for him. I don't know what kind of offense they're going to run, but if they're running an offense for a more mobile run throw kind of quarterback with just a big arm to throw the play action over the top of the field, it's a pretty good fit, right? Malachi, the reason I go with Dante over Malachi, I just think Dante's got a better arm than Malachi. I think they're very similar players in a lot of ways. I think number one, I think Dante's a little bit more athletic, and I think Dante has a stronger arm. But they're both really excellent quarterbacks. Arch is an interesting kid because I think one thing that I don't think Arch gets enough credit for is he's really athletic. He's way more athletic than his uncles.
He's very athletic.
I mean, he's a really good athlete. He can run. I mean, he's a legitimate runner, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. I think Arch just doesn't have just Arch is a lot more like Eli than he is Peyton, right? And he's going to have a little bit of gunslinger to him like Eli did, and he's just built more like Eli was built. I mean, if we're just comparing him to his uncles, which is impossible, I think his ball placement has to get a little bit better, in my opinion. He's not as advanced from a ball placement standpoint as I thought he would be when you look at the last name. And maybe that's unfair to him too. It's like we shouldn't overhype him because he's a Manning. We also maybe shouldn't be as critical of him as maybe we are because he's a Manning. Maybe we are expecting things from him because his name is Manning that we shouldn't. Right. I think that's a fair thing as well. But I like Arch Manning. I just don't think he's the number one player in the country or the number one quarterback in the country. But make no mistake, Arch is a good football player. I just don't see there's just nothing he does other than he's got a really good size. He's got good, 6'3", and he's going to fill out real nicely. He's got a pretty clean throwing motion, in my opinion. He's a good athlete. I just look at it and I say, I don't know if there's anything he does better than Malachi Nelson or Dante Moore or, we haven't really talked a lot about Arch because Notre Dame's not really recruiting him. What are your thoughts on Arch Manning? And when you look at how he stacks up to the other top quarterbacks in the country?
I have a similar thought. Like, I mean, the first highlights that I saw of him was all him just running like quarterback power and running the football and a ton. I'm just like, athletically, it makes sense that he's Cooper's son comparative to Eli or Peyton, who's a former wide receiver. Right. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. I mean, like he's a good athlete. I think, plus arm, in my opinion. I think the release is good. Accuracy for the most part, I definitely get the ball placement versus accuracy thing to a degree. I think that he's in the conversation up near the top, but I would agree. I don't think that it's a slam dunk that he's the number one player in the country. I don't think it's a slam dunk that he's the number one quarterback in the country. I think it's a conversation. And I mean, what?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, like, when you see how some people have rated him, like 24/7 Sports, for instance, like, I mean, he's on the cusp of the Quinn Ewers rating, right? Like the perfect rating.
Which
like
is
he's
also
right in that
freaking
conversation.
absurd, by the way.
Yeah.
Highest graded quarterback ever. What are you watching? He's not even the best quarterback in the state of Texas. You know what I mean? Like, just absurd. Yeah, I mean, but a lot of that is about hype, and that's what it boils down to. A lot of that's about hype. I want to just bring up a few clips of Malachi Nelson. I'm gonna bring those up here real quick, just because, I want some context, right? And that's, I think those things are important to have some context. So let's pull up some film of Malachi and just give people a bit of a sample of what he can do. All right. So here is Malachi Nelson film, just so you can. And again, I think the kid is good. I just don't see him as good as Dante Moore. So let's watch a little bit of him. And I love this question from Q Kibbs, but again, good player, nice clean release. But see that right there, that throw is a perfect example I'm talking about, Ryan, is the ball just doesn't get up and down as quickly as it does with Dante, in my opinion. And again, I think Malachi's got a really nice arm. I think it's going to get a lot stronger as he fills out, because he's still a pretty skinny kid. But I just don't see the big, powerful arm that would make me think he's a better player than Dante Moore. You see how the ball just kind of hangs up, right? You know what I mean? Like, it just like it's in the air a little bit longer. Now, what I like about that throw, that was perfection from a ball placement standpoint. I mean, you can't put that ball in. There's nowhere else you can throw that ball and complete it. And here's the other thing too, Ryan. That is from the far high school hash, from the 35-yard line into the back of the end zone from the far hash.
It's a long throw. Yep.
And he placed it perfectly. And that's what I like about Malachi. Malachi is like, I like to use that expression, the from Wedding Crashers. Hey, can you throw an inter? He was like, it's first team all state. I can put the ball wherever I want. You know what I mean? Like, that's Dante and Malachi. Like, that throw right there, that's a really nice throw. I mean, this is a really beautiful. Look how quick his release is. Gets it out there, back shoulder. Again, far hash. It's a far hash throw. It's a really nice ball. Really nice ball. Good play action.
I think he's got a really natural. This is a natural thrower. I think the difference between Dante and him is I think Dante's anticipation is a little better, just looking at some of these back shoulders.
And I just think the ball jumps out of Dante's hand a little bit better, in my opinion. But this kid. I mean, just this kid's got. And the other thing too is you look at Malachi. Malachi's skinny. I think Dante has the better arm right now. I can't guarantee you that Dante's going to have the better arm in 4 years. Because I think this kid's going to, if he gets into the right kind of strength program, is going to fill out, right? And now he's a good athlete, but I wouldn't necessarily call him a runner.
Right.
But he can move. And he's another guy that, in the pocket, he likes to anticipate and you run around and use his legs more for throwing than he does the other thing. But that's another ball that's just great ball placement. I love his base here. This thing I like too is, see the bend in the knees compared to Jackson Arnold. Nice base, good bend, real quick drive off the back foot. Just see the coil there. It's a beautiful ball. Beautiful ball. Those are really pretty football. Just flicks it. All right, so he threw it from his own 45, steps into it, and the ball goes about 4 or 5 yards deep in the end zone. That's almost a 60-yard throw.
Yeah.
Now, again, he stepped up into it, but still, I couldn't step up anymore. I mean, maybe back in the day, but I couldn't step up anymore and throw the ball 60 yards. This kid's got a really nice throwing motion, really clean, compact, carries the ball a little bit lower than I'd like. I think, but real clean. just great ball placement. I mean, that's what you see when you watch. See the same thing on game film too, Ryan, with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the ball placement and the timing is really impressive. I just think Dante, but see, Dante does all those things too. And that's where I'm coming from is like, I think he does all those things. I just feel like Dante does it all a little bit better. I think Malachi's got the longer frame, maybe the frame that maybe eventually is going to be a little bit better. And I think that Malachi, although I think Dante has a stronger arm from a RPMs, from a miles per hour, it does appear based on film that maybe Malachi can throw it a little bit further.
That's fair.
Which, again, far doesn't always equal more powerful. Right. Powerful to me is, can you throw that 25-yard in cut on a line, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where I think Dante has the stronger arm. But as far as just pure length, maybe that's just because Dante's not asked to do that. But we do see Malachi throw some 60-yard passes in high school. Look how quickly, look how just effortlessly he loved the presence. Eyes downfield. He's got some swagger to him, but look how quickly and clean he gets this ball off. It's a nice throw right here. Bam. Whoop. Snaps it off. Really nice ball. Really nice ball. And he can run. This kid's a good football player, man. I mean, this is why I say, to me, those two are the two best quarterbacks in the country are him and Dante Moore, in my opinion.
It's fair.
I'd probably put Arch ahead of Nico right now, but as I said, Nico's got an incredibly high ceiling. So that's Malachi Nelson, for those that were wondering. But when it comes to the question that Q Gibbs had, why do I grade him out higher, smarter? I think he's got the best anticipation of any quarterback I've seen in this class. Dante does. His ball placement is as good as him, and Malachi's ball placement is as good as anybody in the class, in my opinion. I think the ball explodes out of his hand. I think he's effortless. I think he's even Malachi being longer. This is one of those things where I think being shorter in today's game gives you actually a little bit of an advantage, for the most part, because some of the shorter quarterbacks can kind of really throw off platform. The Patrick Mahomeses are a little bit rare. Those big, long-limbed guys can really just throw off platform like crazy. Malachi is not quite as good throwing off platform as Dante is. I mean, Dante can just throw from all types of arm angles. His anticipation is exceptional. His ball placement is exceptional, as is Malachi's. And, I think he's a really athletic kid. So I think to me, those two guys stand out above everybody else for those reasons. Are there guys that are bigger? Yeah. Are there guys that maybe throw the ball further, a little harder? Yeah. Nico definitely has a better arm than both of them. But the total package of what I look for in a quarterback, the IQ, the intangibles, the arm talent, the athleticism, there's nothing that Dante has except maybe a 10-pound thicker frame at this point in time, Ryan. I don't same with Malachi. I mean, I wish Malachi was about 10 or 15 pounds bigger, sure. Right now. He'll fill out, but right now. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no.
Where you place those guys?
Yeah, I would say it's a close one between Dante Moore and Malachi Nelson for me. Mm-hmm. If anybody had Malachi ahead of him, I would be okay with it, because I think that there is obviously a substantial ceiling with a guy like a Malachi, and I think that you could argue that it may be slightly higher than a Dante Moore. So I would accept if anybody had Malachi there. Mm-hmm. I would say Arch is a firm third for me after those two, though. I see the ceiling with Nico, and I totally get it. I think that there's a substantial floor with a guy like Arch. I can't see him being a I don't want to call it a bust, but being a underwhelming college. He's going to be a really good college quarterback, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah. And again, we're talking about Arch is at worst a top 50 guy, right? I mean, that's the thing is I think we sometimes I think when we feel a guy's being overrated, we then go the opposite of our criticism,
right?
And drop him too much. Like I said, top 50. I think as a junior, Arch looked more like a top 30 guy to me. Malachi and Dante are top 10 guys, which means anybody with a brain would be happy with any of those three kids. Nico, to me, the issue with theirs, the floor is way lower than the other guys, and that's my concern. maybe he has the highest ceiling, but he's got a super low floor, in my opinion. But I think, to me, those three quarterbacks, and I'm trying to think if I forgot anybody. I know there's some other quarterbacks, but those three, to me, are the guys that I look at and say they are definitely, in my view, the three best quarterbacks in the country. I'm just going to pull up some of these quarterback lists just to make sure I'm not missing anyone. Eli Holstein from Louisiana is not in that. Jaden Rashad from California is not in there for me. Yeah, I mean, those are some guys I liked. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I love Ricky Collins. I don't know if you've ever seen him, Ryan. He's a kid that Notre Dame was looking at early. He's going to Purdue from Louisiana. Love that kid. But again, is he in the same level as those other guys? No, he's not. He's not. And there's some good quarterbacks. Jalen Rashad is a kid that I like. There's Braden Dorman from Colorado's got some tools. He's got some issues, in my opinion, as well, but he's got some really good tools. So it's a really good quarterback class, really, really good quarterback class. But to me, those three stand above the rest when it comes to the combination of ceiling plus floor plus all the things you look for in a quarterback. Jojo Pinedas is looking forward to the show. Very excited. Hope you liked it because this is the end. Brian and Ryan, Dante is our Bryce Young. I definitely want to put my chips in the poker table, and Coach Freeman and Reese, let's get our Pied Piper. Bryce Young comparison is one that I think makes a lot of sense with Dante. Ryan, what are your – I think he's probably a little bit – I think he's probably got a little bit quicker release than Bryce did. Maybe at the same age, Bryce had a little bit of a stronger arm, maybe. But I see a lot of similarities there if you're looking for comparisons to guys at the next level.
Now, we've talked about that comparison in the past a little bit, right? Like, I think from a body type perspective, Dante's a little bit taller, but they kind of have a similar how their body's kind of configured. And I think that they're both good athletes. Dante's probably even a little more athletic, but they're not runners, right? Like, they're extenders as passers. And there's just very natural accuracy to both. There's a natural feel in the pass game. So I think that it makes a lot of sense from a comparison perspective. I think that they do play similarly to a degree, and I think that their skill sets are somewhat comparable. I think there's some things that Dante does, obviously, I just think, again, he's just a little bit bigger. I actually think that his arm might be a little stronger than Bryce Young's.
On 25 I would agree. I think Bryce has a better deep arm at the same level.
Okay,
in my opinion.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think what often gets lost about Dante, and this is is his 25 yard in zip is just really good. Really good. But part of that too, Ryan, may be he just doesn't throw a ton of 60-yard balls. That may be it too. He just doesn't get that opportunity. He may go to an offense where he's throwing 60-yard bombs. I just don't see it as much.
Well, sometimes when a guy has great anticipation, right, the ball's getting out of his hand a little quicker. You're not holding the ball to throw 60-yard bombs.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the thing about Buckner. It's like maybe Buckner can throw further than we think. He just never holds the ball long enough to launch it 60 yards.
It's true.
So certainly, Mike Huff with a super chat. Thank you, Mike, for that. Obviously, Dante is special, but man, Chris Vizzina is so talented. We actually kind of already answered that one. Now that we've kind of gotten to the end, would be good. Either or would be good for me. Am I wrong? End of the day, Mike, I think Notre Dame if they get either one of those two kids, Notre Dame fans should be happy, in my opinion. For sure. There's going to be a little disappointment for me if they don't get Dante Moore. I'm not going to lie to you because I think the kid can be special. But Chris Vizzina is nobody's consolation prize, right? That kid's a good football player, Ryan. He's nobody's consolation prize, in my opinion.
I agree completely. He's, Christopher Vizzina is he would be one of the more highly ranked quarterbacks Notre Dame's gotten in several years, right? So, it's not I wouldn't even consider it a consolation prize at that point. Like, he would be a very good get for Notre Dame. I do think also that Dante is just on a slightly higher level. That's all.
Yeah. Antoine Porcher Rideau says, is there a chance that Notre Dame gets commitments from both Moore and Vizzina? No.
0.
Look, you can sign two quarterbacks, but it's rare. It's rare that you sign two top 100 kids. And look, I'm going to point to a perfect example. Is USC signed two top 100 kids a couple years ago with Jackson Dart and Miller Moss. Number one, Miller Moss wasn't a top 100 kid. Number two, they were both West Coast kids. One of them was an in-state kid. I believe Miller Moss is from California. Jackson Dart was from Utah. And one of them's already transferred, right? And so Yeah, I don't see it. Would I take both of them? Yeah, of course I would. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. So I'm going to get back to that Ian Book conversation because I'm still trying to figure out where it came from. UIW Swimmer says, I just want the narrative that Vizzina isn't elite to stop. He would be a 5-star almost any other year. Now, see, I don't agree with that because if you're a 5-star, you're a 5-star. I don't care if you're the number 7 quarterback or you're the number 1 quarterback. If you're a 5-star, you're a 5-star. I think number one, it's that there's a narrative that Vizzina is not elite because right now he's not elite. Right now, I would give him a 5-star upside grade. But I don't think you can look at his film right now and say that guy's a 5-star player today. I don't like Malachi Nelson right now, 5-star player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dante Moore right now, 5-star player. Arch, we could debate about, if he's a 5-star or just outside, but he's in that conversation. I don't think Chris Vizzina is there yet. Now, could he be there by the time he's done playing high school football? Yes. Let's see what kind of jump he makes from his junior or senior year, Ryan. But I don't think that really matters. I don't think the year he's in, I'll say this, the year he's in maybe makes Notre Dame fans more excited about him, but I don't think his ranking your ranking is your ranking. I don't care what year you are. Your grade's your grade, no matter what year you're from.
Well, that's the part that got me on the comment a little bit because I don't think any of these recruiting platforms would hesitate to throw an extra quarterback in their top 10 if they thought he was a top 10 player. Like, I don't understand why that that doesn't matter to me. It's not like you're, oh man, you can only have 3 quarterbacks ranked this high. You can't have a 4th. I don't think that that's a mindset that people have. If the recruiting platforms thought Christopher Vizzina was a 5-star quarterback, he would have a 5-star rating. It's just simply
right. I agree with that. I agree. Says Brian or Ryan, what can the reasonable arm strength gains be for a junior quarterback in high school be in a couple years?
Substantial. Yeah. Especially when we're talking about, a couple years is obviously projecting forward into college when they get into a strength program, right? And they're going to add natural weight. And then honestly, it's not even so much the development of a physical, because it is obviously a lot to do with maturation physically, but also when you're going to be now being coached by better coaching to a degree, right? You're going to be from a more consistent base. You're going to be just in a bit more powerful position. That's going to just increase just based upon technique, not even a physical development thing.
100% agree. And I think that's where Jackson Arnold could see a jump too, is if he can play with a little bit better age, bend those knees a little bit more. Don't be so stiff-legged. You can see the ball jump out of his hand a little bit more. And that's where he's one of those kids. Of all the kids that in this class that I say, boy, that kid might prove me wrong. Of the 4 we talked about, I think Jackson Arnold could be that guy. He's a guy that I think there's enough mechanical things that he could fix that he could say, hey, haha, Driscoll, you didn't think I was a top 100 guy. Like, can you believe that? I could see that. But just to your point, mechanics alone for some kids are going to add some RPMs to the football.
Sure.
But yeah, and it's not so much about upper body strength. It's also about, it's the power cleans, the cores, the squats, it's the plyos, that kind of stuff. That's just going to really improve your lower body is where a lot of that's going to come from. So yeah,
for sure.
And then every kid matures differently. Some guys are going to throw as hard as they're ever going to throw as a sophomore in high school. Just, but for most kids, there's going to be improvement. Kane Sloan. Hey, Brian, I have seen a lot of talk about Vizzina lately. If Vizzina were to commit, would we take 2 and still recruit Dante hard to the end? And or will Dante speed up and choose based on Vizzina? I would imagine that Notre Dame would keep recruiting Dante Moore. I don't think they'd stop recruiting him. I just don't think they'd get him. They'd have a shot at getting him. And then you run the risk of, if you keep recruiting Dante, do you then tick off the guy that you have committed and then he decommits and now you're screwed?
You have nobody now.
That's just how this game is played. Would they still take? Would they take Vizzina and Dante Moore? Heck yes, they would take both of those guys.
Of course,
no question. It's just not going to happen. We talked a little bit. Kane, I would encourage you to go listen to our show earlier. We dived a little bit into how they would handle if they thought Vizzina was going to commit. How would they handle Dante Moore. We dove into that pretty early in the show earlier today. I would encourage you to check that out. But I would imagine that they would at least have a conversation with Dante if they thought Vizzina was going to commit at some point in time. I do think that's not giving you intel. That's not telling you what I was told. That's just kind of my take on how I'm reading the situation at this point in time. And we got a super chat from Christopher Morgan. Thank you, Christopher. If Dante Moore commits Notre Dame, I will personally buy him a $1,000 gift card to Strikes and Spares for games and bowling. Does this count for NIL? Just kidding. No, that does not count for NIL. So that counts as a bribe. That is an illegal payment, and you're not going to want to do benefits. That. But yeah, I love the effort, love the excitement. But hey, I don't know if you're going to be able to afford it, man. All the super chats you've given us today, we appreciate it. I think this is Christopher's third one today. Gave us a couple earlier in the show today, so I really appreciate that. Brian's on mute. This is great. Brian's on mute. Says, I was thinking the same thing. Vizzina has more obvious, quote-unquote, classical quarterback traits, but Moore has the QB intangibles that make one special. He also says, is either Moore or Vizzina a better fit for what we think Notre Dame's offense under Freeman Reese is going to look like? That's a good question. Mm-hmm. I would say Moore's the better fit because of, I think, Moore's quickness of his release makes the RPO game better. That's assuming that they're going to run the offense we saw in the bowl game. Mm-hmm. If they run the offense they ran early in 2021 or the offense that they ran more so under Brian Kelly, I think it would be Vizzina. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think Vizzina would probably be a better fit for the offense Chip Long liked to run. I think Vizzina would be a better fit for what we saw in 2020. Just a big arm, throw it downfield. But I feel like if your offense is running away where Dante Moore doesn't fit it as well as someone else's, the problem is not Dante Moore. The problem is your offense. You make sure that it fits Dante Moore. Yeah.
It's usually how it works, man. When we're talking about talent, if you can't make it fit, it's not usually a talent issue.
Yeah, exactly. That's a you problem, not a kid problem. Guinea Pig Clips says, how good can Vizzina be behind a legit Harry Hiestand caliber offensive line?
Excellent. If we're behind a Harry Hiestand offensive line, I would also, you have a run game with you too. And I mean, we didn't even talk about this. Obviously the RPO action kind of fits it more into Dante Moore's breadbasket, but Chris Vizzina off of some play action sounds like a good time, man. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Chris Vizzina is a good football player. And if he came to Notre Dame and got coached up effectively, I think he'd be a really heck of a quarterback. I mean, he'd have a chance to be really, really good. There's no doubt about it. It's just Dante could be really, really special. Again, I just want to keep going back to that. Our comments, we both like Chris Vizzina a lot. Mm-hmm. It's not that. Here's an interesting one from Casey Martinez. Dante Moore equals Joe Burrow skill set, where Vizzina equals a Trevor Lawrence skill set. And I think what he means there is Joe Burrow could play from the pocket, but Joe Burrow could also do a lot of stuff off script. Where Trevor from the pocket was more of a traditional drop back, big armed, throw it downfield. I don't know if I would quite go Joe Burrow and Dante Moore, but I see where he's coming from on that one. Yeah, I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, no, I get the train of thought. Obviously, it's not a perfect comparison, but from a playing style perspective, I understand where that's coming from as well. It makes sense.
Yep. I think the release makes a lot of sense too. Here's a question. SGC, is Arnold Buckner-like? I would say so. No. I think that Tyler Buckner, and again, I the reason I pulled this question up is because, again, I think we have lost sight of just how good Tyler Buckner was in high school. Tyler was a more dynamic athlete, significantly so. I think Tyler is a much more clean thrower in high school, much more clean thrower, much more in the pocket comfortableness than Jackson Arnold was. Tyler Buckner, to me, was a significantly better prospect coming out of high school than Jackson Arnold, in my opinion. If I was ranking Tyler Buckner as a prospect to the guys in his class, he'd be number 2 behind Dante Moore and definitely ahead of Chris Vizzina, in my opinion. I agree. Dante was a 5-star for me as a junior. I dropped him down to 4.5-star, which is a top 50 guy as a senior, or as a freshman, and kind of coming out of high school because of the lack of experience, missing 2 full seasons. Just that that intangibles grade kind of came down a little bit. Just like if a guy has a really bad injury, you got to take that into account somehow. And so that's what kind of dropped them. But I mean, Tyler Buckner, to me, I mean, you're talking about a kid. Tyler Buckner ran for almost as many yards as a junior in high school as Chris Vizzina passed for as a junior in high school. Okay, I mean, think about that. He ran for more touchdowns than Chris Vizzina passed for, and that doesn't even count the fact that he threw for over 4,400 yards and had 53 touchdown passes as well. Like Tyler Buckner was a special player. He was absolutely a special player. Here's an interesting one. Bronx ND fan. Do any of these quarterbacks throw to elite talent? Dante makes his receivers look elite. No. I don't think either one of these guys, Ryan, are throwing to elite players. Your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, if we're talking about all four, then I mean Jackson Arnold obviously plays on a really good Denton Geyer team, so
he throws to
the best
elite.
talent.
I would say, yeah, Jackson throws to elite talent. I don't know if that elite talent are elite receivers.
Right,
but Peyton Bowen's an elite player in my opinion. Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah. He would be the one. He would be the one that I would point to. Michael Parks, I'm not sure I quite understand this, Ryan. Maybe you might get it. He says Dante Moore is a shortstop. Malachi Nelson is a left fielder.
I think he's saying that Dante Moore kind of has that quick twitch, get the ball out really quickly. Okay. I think he's saying that Malachi Nelson's more of a longer release, chuck it kind of guy.
Rangy, 6'3". Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Throw to the plate comparative to throw to first, right? Like that's what I kind of think.
Yep. Savage Cyan Fitness. Hey, Brian and Ryan, do you think Moore and Tate are a package deal, or do you think we can get one of them without the other?
I wouldn't call it a package deal. I would say that Dante Moore would drastically improve your chances with Carnell Tate. Carnell is obviously very aware of who Dante Moore is and would be, I think, very interested in potentially playing with him. So I'm not saying that no matter where Dante Moore ends up playing, if it is not Notre Dame, that Carnell would necessarily follow him. But I think the fact that he is already interested in Notre Dame plus the Dante Moore layer would increase the chances drastically.
I think the main place that Dante Moore impacts Carnell Tate is Notre Dame. I think if Dante Moore picks Michigan State, Carnell Tate's not going to Michigan State. If he picks Miami, I don't think he would go to Miami. If Dante went to Ohio State, sure, because I think has been one of Carnell's favorite schools. But I think it's more about if it would greatly impact Notre Dame's chances of getting Carnell Tate if they got Dante Moore. It's not impossible for Notre Dame to get Carnell Tate. I think there's this thought that if they don't get Dante Moore, they have no chance at Carnell Tate. I don't think that's accurate. I think it's going to be a lot tougher. And I wouldn't necessarily predict that they're going to get Carnell Tate. Depends partly on how long he goes. The longer he goes, I think the better it would be for Notre Dame. But I don't think it's a given that it's if they get Darnell, they're going to get Carnell or Dante. If they get Dante, they'll get Carnell. If they don't get Dante, they won't get Carnell. I don't think either thing is 100% true. I think both of them are likely, but I don't think they're both true. And if they were going to get one and not the other, I would right now lean towards Dante. They would get Dante and not get Carnell. I don't think it's a 100% guarantee that Dante still picks or Carnell still picks Notre Dame if Dante does. I just think it greatly enhances their chances, and I would feel much, much better about it. There's no doubt about it. Agreed. Michael Parks, gap closers. We're talking about gap closers, and he's absolutely right. There's a couple of those on the board, in my opinion. Michael says, I agree with Brian. The comp of Dante Moore, a more athletic, bigger Bryce Young from the earlier live show. In my opinion, Notre Dame now leads for Dante Moore and is a must-get. Fingers crossed. I agree. Alan Saunders says most likely he won't be as good as Bryce Young. Bryce will be the number one pick in the NFL draft. Hard to equal that. I don't think being the number one pick in the NFL draft equals what kind of player you're going to be in college, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I mean, Ryan Leaf was the number 2 player in the draft.
There's a lot of those examples.
Mitch Trubisky, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, we can go Jamarcus Russell, Baker Mayfield. We could have some long talks about that. But look, Alan, it's I think where you could say is like, is he going to match Bryce Young's production? That'll be tough, just because of the type of offense that Alabama runs compared to what a lot of other teams run. But I think part of the thing that I love Bryce Young as a prospect, don't get me wrong. Number one, I don't think it's a given that he's going to be the number one pick in the draft next year, mainly because of his frame. I think his frame is right now shaky. But Ryan, you could speak more to that because you're more of an NFL draft guy than I am, obviously.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. He would probably be the favorite, I guess, in the clubhouse. But I mean, there's already people that are, kind of speaking the praises of CJ Stroud from Ohio State. And there's going to be, I mean, every single year, the guy that kind of is perceived as the slam dunk number one overall pick, it usually maybe not fully gets unseated, but there is a different conversation, right? Like after Derek Stingley's freshman year at LSU, everyone would have told you he was going to be a top 5 lock, and he's not a top 5 lock anymore. Things change quickly.
Right. And Sam Howell was supposed to be a top 10 NFL draft pick going into last year. I remember that one year that
Spencer Rattler was supposed to be the guy too. I mean, it happens.
Right. Who was it? I think it was ESPN coming into the 2015 season. Remember they were like, they had Cordell Jones, Connor Cook, and Christian Hackenberg, all his first round picks. You remember that? I think it was it Todd McShay? I think that had them.
But again, Gil Brandt had Hunter Johnson as his quarterback one at one point. So,
well, I don't make fun of old people. All right, I can't.
No shade on Gil. It was just a weird little tidbit there. So,
yep. And then we have one final question I just have to ask. I have to get to. Let me see here.
Yep.
Let's do the Ian Book thing. So I'm trying to find this. How did the Ian Book conversation start?
I think
you started this. You were the one that
I don't think I was. I think when we were watching Jackson Arnold, you said something like, "This is what people thought Ian Book was coming out of high school," and then you started. Yeah,
that's how it started.
Okay, I think.
I'm saying I think you starred STARRED this. You started this comment, so I missed. And what I meant is
wait, I'm wrong. So that starred that I did the Ian Book 30-3 thing. That was earlier in the conversation where we were basically saying that like things need to change in order for Notre Dame to get to the next level. And I think someone put in there that, Ian Book went 30-3. It's not that bad type of thing. You know what I mean?
First of all, he went 30-5.
Yep.
Okay. He also went 5-5 against ranked teams. Ian Book was 25-0 against teams that finished the season unranked. It was 5-5 against. And the one of those top 25 wins against number 1 Clemson, they didn't have Trevor Lawrence. And we saw what happened a month later when they had Trevor Lawrence. Yep. Looked a little different in that particular game. Look, Ian Book was a nice player. I mean, good kid, tried hard. But Notre Dame's not winning a championship with a kid like that. They're just not. And 3-5 when your record's 5. Put it in context. In basically a little over 2.5 years as a starter, because he started 9 games in 2018, 12 in 2020. 12 in 2013 in 2019, 12 in 2020, 35 starts. He had 5 wins over teams that finished the season ranked. Tony Rice had 5 wins over teams that had 7 wins over teams that finished in the top 10 in 2.5 years as a starter. Top 10. He won 12 games against teams that finished in the top 25. So that's a winner. Right. That's what a winner does. You beat the best teams in the schedule. I think he had 3, 4, 5 wins over teams that finished in the top 5. Right. You think about Colorado in a bowl game, Michigan in '88. I think Miami in 1988. Like that's just that season alone. That's 2 wins over team. West Virginia finished in the top 5. I mean, maybe 3 top 5 teams in 1 year. So. But look, Ian Book's a good player. But what I meant by that was Ian Book was a gamer, right? Like he wasn't like this structured quarterback, and people thought he was just this run around and make plays. And what Jackson Arnold does, he does a lot of things Ian Book does, similar body type, but Jackson will make the throws that Ian didn't make in college. And that's what I meant by that. Now, will Jackson make those throws in college? I have no idea. I'm talking about what he does in high school. Because Ian Book was not the kid in high school that he was in college. He got more athletic. He got stronger. He was a much better prospect, which is why he was committed to Washington State before he committed Notre Dame. So that was kind of my thoughts there. We have a Georgia fan, Ray from the ATL Zone. First, let me say, go Dogs. He's a Georgia fan. But for Notre Dame to be a real powerhouse, they need to focus on speed on the edges. Don't disagree with that. But I still feel like at the end of the day, it's going to come down to quarterback.
Yep.
And then here's the final question I wanted to ask. Jordan Schreiber says, is your job, asking me, is your job more enjoyable now that Ryan is working with you? And I will absolutely say absolutely. Absolutely. Ryan and Sean, but especially Ryan, since he's full-time, Sean is part-time. Ryan has done a great job. And I just, obviously we just kind of wrapped up a little bit over our first month together. And it seems like you've been working with me a lot longer now than that. But I think it's made our product a lot better. I think more knowledgeable voices is always better. And of course, we have a much better recruiting package, and he's just getting started. So, Jordan, thank you for asking that question. And I can say absolutely my job is more fun, because this show would be so boring if it's just me up here talking through film the whole time. It'd be so boring. I like having guests. And so, and you only have one kid, not 5 like Vince. And so, we can. You put your one down and she's out, and we can kind of talk some football, where Vince has got like 4 other ones running around somewhere that we have to worry about. So it's definitely a little bit of a different deal. But yeah, Ryan, I agree with this comment right here. Ryan was a home run hire. So yeah, so that's where we're at. So anyway, Ryan, and of course we had to get this in. Ryan brings great energy and knowledge to IB Kuiper 2.0. I just had to. I had to.
2.0 means better. That's all I have to say.
There you go. The upgraded Mel Kiper. Yes, no doubt about it. All right, that's going to do it for tonight's show. We'll be back tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern. And then, of course, Friday we'll have our normal mailbag. We'll have Vince and I on for a while. Then Ryan will jump on, and we'll kind of have some fun. So we're not going anywhere. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast. Check out the message board at irishbreakdown.com. It's boards.irishbreakdown.com. Sign up. I promise you won't regret it. You also get discounts to our merch store. Sometimes people spend enough money where their discount to the merch store almost kind of negated their year membership, but it was worth it because you're getting some great IB gear and tons going on. We're going to jump off this and get right on the boards. And I'm sure there's been a ton of questions that's been asked in the last 2 hours. Hopefully the natives have they've behaved themselves in the chat, hopefully, since we've been on the show. But everybody, thanks so much for joining us for our 2 shows today. Thanks for your patience on getting that film going. We took a while, but we figured it out, right? Hey, what is the rule, Ryan? Rule number 76, man. No excuses. Play like a champion. And we got it done today. I'm going to have to figure out what's going on with this StreamYard thing. But you know what? We got it done, man. Watch some film, and it went really well. So everybody, thanks for your patience. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for the great conversation about the quarterback play. And hopefully Notre Dame is able to close on one of those top 2 guys. Certainly a big need. And we'll have all the latest for you on the message board at irishbreakdown.com, and of course the main irishbreakdown.com site. So everybody have a great night, and thank you for joining us on the Irish Breakdown podcast.